I'd like to welcome everybody, staff, department heads, council members, for being here for our budget review session today. Let's first turn some time over to our city clerk, Annie Meredith, for roll call.
Mayor Watkins,
Here.
Vice Mayor Samley. Here. Councilmember Dykens,
Here.
Councilmember Savage,
Here.
Councilmember Staley,
Present.
Councilmember Walker, Councilmember Ward.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Great, thank you. If we all could stand, I'll lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Item number 1 on our agenda, the council may go into executive session for legal counsel in accordance with ARS 38-431.03A3 to discuss any agenda item. The following items may be discussed, considered, and decisions made relating thereto. Item number 2, agenda items 2A, our fiscal year 2025-26 budget work session. This is a budget work session for council to receive presentations from staff regarding the City of Kingman's fiscal year 2025-2026 operating and capital budgets. We will turn some time over to those who know all, to Tim and Tina.
With that, I'll just pass it to Tina, I guess.
Yes.
He mentioned who knows all, right? No, thank you, Mayor, Council. Thank you for being here today. We have been working quite a while on our budget. All of our department heads and their staff have been working diligently to prepare their individual budgets and working with Tina and her team on putting this all together. Just really want to thank them for all of their hard work in it, and we're happy to present it to you. With that, I'll just read a little brief introduction. As I mentioned, I'm pleased to present to you the fiscal year 25-26 recommended budget and 5-year capital improvement plan for the City of Kingman. This balanced budget reflects the City Council's priorities, which were shaped during the November planning session and informed by ongoing community feedback throughout the year. The total recommended budget is $309.9 million and represents a continued investment in the quality of life, public safety, infrastructure, and financial sustainability for our city. This budget not only maintains essential services, but also advances critical priorities, including public safety enhancements, infrastructure investment, recreational development, economic growth and responsiveness. This year's recommendations, along with assumptions and revenue projections for FY26, are covered in more detail throughout the budget document and this presentation. With that, we're pleased to submit this year's budget to the council for your consideration. With that, I'll be handing it over to Tina. She'll go through a number of things, and we'll kind of tag team it as we go. Please stop us at any point. Don't feel like you have to wait. If something stands out to you, please stop us. We'd be happy to discuss it as we go. So thank you.
Great. I guess first I want to thank the council throughout this last year for giving us priorities and helping us develop this budget. I also want to thank the city manager for all of his input, our senior leadership team for all of the efforts that they have put through or that they have been put through over these last 9 months. And certainly I want to give kudos and give a special thanks to my accounting manager who really put everything together for you today. So with that, we can go ahead and get started. And we'll start today by talking about the budget development. We'll look at the budget highlights, operating budgets, and capital projects. So a very similar format as what we've done in the past. And as far as the budget calendar and how this process works, you are all very familiar with this, but we started in November with the Council Fall Planning and Priority Setting Retreat. Then we kick off the capital projects and operating budget development. We, in January, held a year-to-date recap and look forward work session with the council. And then throughout the January to May timeframe, the city manager reviewed all of the requests and ultimately submitted to you a recommended budget book that was printed on May 7th, and now we are holding our council work session. Anything that is changed from here will be incorporated into the tentative budget and then brought to you at the June 3rd council meeting, and then we will be holding a special meeting that is off cycle from our regular council meetings to adopt the final budget on June 24th. All right. Well, as far as economic indicators and things that we look at in the economy as we are developing the budget, it's a little bit different now than it was in January. We knew that the new administration, there were going to be some things coming through the pipeline, and there was some uncertainty in January, but there is still uncertainty. And so we know that the tariff situation is still not resolved, and there is uncertainty around that. We know that with tariffs, it will potentially cause inflation, whatever is decided with the federal government, and then ultimately that's going to impact interest rates, so consumer spending. So we are monitoring that and watching that, and you'll see some of the approaches that we have taken in the budget to counteract that as well. And then we also know that the federal funding freeze has been something we've been dealing with the last few months too. I'm happy to report that at this time, all of the grants that we have applied for and been awarded, we are able to move forward with. So all of the agencies have given us the go-ahead to move forward with it, and that we will be reimbursed for any of the monies that we expend. Now the issue comes to the actual performance reporting period. So all grants have a time frame that you have to use the monies by, and now we are quickly approaching some of those timelines. So we are reaching out to all of the agencies asking for extensions, and we have done that before and been awarded those, but it is not a guarantee. However, we feel fairly confident that we would be given extensions only because this is something that is affecting the entire United States. So there are many cities and counties and states asking for extensions. So we're hopeful that we will be granted those, and we'll keep everyone apprised as we move forward. But we are assuming that we are being given these extensions, and so anything that is grant funded currently, we are expecting that we will continue to be reimbursed for those costs and get those projects completed as quickly as we can. I do want to talk a little bit about the state of Arizona's growth rates. Back in January, they submitted the governor's budget, and in the governor's budget, they were expecting, I think, just over $600 million in the rainy day fund, and things looked pretty strong, I would say, for their growth rate in revenues. And so before you, I have a chart that I will cover that the state shared recently. And if you've been paying attention to the League of Arizona Cities and Towns and anything with the state of Arizona, they recently came out and said that they are projecting that their rainy day fund balance is going to be closer to $300 million. And that sounds like a huge difference. And it is a huge difference from $600 million. But I want to point out that that does not mean that we are going to experience negative growth. The state is not expecting negative growth. So if you look at this chart here, the dark blue line is what they expected their revenue growth to be in January. The white bar is their most conservative estimates, taking into account any sort of tariffs and some of the uncertainty. Doesn't take into account any sort of recession. That could certainly be worse, but it's taking into account what they're looking at going into the next fiscal year. So you'll see there is still growth in their revenues. It's just not the growth that it was back in January. So that's still a good sign for us since we participate in those revenues, and a good sign for the state overall as far as the economy. So I just wanted to point that out, that although we're hearing some of that negative news, it doesn't mean that it's bad news from a revenue perspective. And then the next slide just goes into a little bit more detail as far as income tax and sales tax, as far as what the state is expecting in the next few years. And so in fiscal year 26 for income tax, that's that first table on the far right with the red circle, you'll see that there is their sales tax and their income tax growth rates anywhere from 3% to just over 4%. And then in the out years, that bottom table shows even more growth. So in the two areas that we rely on for the state, things still look okay. And then, of course, we always want to check our activity as far as building permit wise. And when we talk about building permit activity, we're talking about new single-family residential units and new commercial units or permits being issued. And so in January, we were expecting to beat fiscal year 24's numbers. We're seeing a little bit of a different trend in the last few months. We have what I'm calling a laggard 3 months. February, March, and April, we've only issued 30 new single-family residential permits overall, and usually it's been ranging about 20. So we definitely have seen a decline. However, in talking to Director Moquin and what he is seeing and hearing from the development community, we do not expect that to be the downtrend. There's still going to be inventory, there's still subdivisions and things that are going to be happening this year as well as going into next year and the future. So we are expecting that new permit activity to continue to increase, potentially at slower rates, but increase from where we think we're going to land at the end of this fiscal year. All right, we'll go into some of the budget highlights. Are there any questions thus far as what we took into account in putting together the budget? Okay. All right, so total revenues. So revenues across every single fund and everything that we do for the fiscal year 26 recommended budget is just over $245 million. That takes into account any sort of expected contributions, let's say from a developer who might participate in the traffic interchanges or in streets, or for instance, ADOT paying us back for the billboard relocation. Any of those types of contributions is what that outside participation number is on the bottom of that chart. We also have intergovernmental, which is the second largest revenue source. That's grants, grant funding between the airport and general grants. That's why it's such a large number. And then you'll see it's our revenues, so local sales tax, state shared revenues, and then anything that we charge for water, sewer, parks, golf course, anything like that. I do want to point out that in these total revenue sources does include a water rate increase and a solid waste rate increase. It does not include any sort of increases to charges for services such as parks, recreation, golf, any of those general fees is what we look at those as. Does not include any of those. And so what are we looking at for sales tax growth? So one of the approaches that we took in the event that we do land in some sort of recessionary period, we want to be very cognizant that sales tax would definitely be affected. And so although the state is predicting close to 4% growth, you'll see that we are not. We are predicting closer to 1.1% in fiscal year 26, and we're also taking a conservative approach in fiscal year 27 at 2% growth. So we feel by doing that, we are giving us some cushion, right, to buffer any sort of potential recession that might hit. And with state shared revenues. So also looking at what the state is predicting and what the state has shared that they believe their estimates will be and sharing in the revenues that they plan to share with us. We never take their numbers and plug them into our budget. We always budget a little bit more conservatively, and we did that with these numbers as well. So we even budgeted lower or projected lower than that two-sector forecast or that white bar forecast that the state had. So again, giving us a little bit more buffer and cushion in the event not only of a recession or lower state shared revenues, but if federal funding, if they end up losing any of their federal funding, right, we don't know how they'll end up sweeping any of our funds. And there has been no talk of that, just for the record, zero talk of any sort of sweeping of state shared revenues. So moving on to the total appropriations. Total appropriations is literally all of the expenses that are included in the recommended budget. So it counts for all expenditures. This year, it's $309.9 million. That takes into account operating budgets. It takes into account capital, any sort of grants. So everything that's included in the 26 budget. One of the reasons for the decline from fiscal year 24 to fiscal year 25 to now is that the draw site was one of those big projects that was included in prior years. That's no longer. And also the Flying Fortress Parkway TI. We have already issued monies for that, and so it's moving forward, and it's no longer in our budget. So we are down to $309.9 million. All right, so looking at operating budgets, this looks like a really large increase. Just the way that the scale is on this particular chart, it's not as significant as it looks. It's a 7.2% increase from fiscal year 25, and we'll go into all those details when we look at the operating budgets. This does not take into account non-departmental items. So non-departmental items such as lease proceeds, maybe some of the remodels that are for an entire building and not for specific divisions. So anything that isn't specific to a department is what we look at when we talk about operating budgets. Contingency, that's another non-departmental item. One of the things I do want to cover are the outgoing transfers for the general fund, and it's because it's a pretty large number, so I want to make sure that we cover that with you specifically. Again, all of this information is in the recommended budget book before you today, but just wanting to give you the highlights here today and point out certain things, especially for the public. So as far as outgoing transfers from the general fund, yay, we're in year 3 of year 7 of the street repairs, maintenance, and improvements program, so there's $6.5 million going to her for that. We have $4.1 million going to the capital projects fund that funds our general government, public safety, streets, parks and recreation projects. Of that $4.1 million, just over $2 million is construction sales tax. That was something the council informally adopted in 2019, moving all construction sales tax from the general fund to capital projects. So every year we do that. The difference are just our cash reserves. I also want to share that included in that transfer is it includes funding a payment plan for the purchase of the industrial park phase 2 land in the event the land release gets approved soon and we're able to make payments for that purchase. The general fund, meaning purchasing that land, it's included in the budget and in the 5-year plan and included in those transfers. We also support the transit fund. So the general fund does support the transit fund. Transit fund does have grant funding. So anywhere from 56 to 80% of the transit fund is grant funded, but there is a shortfall and the general fund covers that. Also included this year for the financial support and the transfer is a transit center design cost. So it's a little bit higher than normal, and we'll cover that when we get to capital and the operating budgets. And then we have a benefits reserve fund where all of our HSA contributions for our high deductible health plan are funded, where our retiree payouts, retiree insurance are paid for, so those are monies that go there. And then we have debt service payments also that are being transferred out, and then some small numbers going to our utility billing team or the water operations fund for running the business licensing process, and then for grant matches in the event that we need to do that. All right. I do want to talk a little bit about the public safety pension for tiers 1 and 2. So a few years ago, the council issued almost $40 million in pension obligations to pay down our unfunded liability. As part of that issuance, we also issued $4.6 million in kind of a contingency reserve. So in the event that the police and fire pensions fell below 100%, we would have some monies to be able to contribute to the fund to get us back up to 100%. So we found out this year that because of the recent initiative that council did with the step plans for public safety, it isn't something that the PSPRS system incorporates into their actuarial valuations, and so it was a little bit heavier of an increase than they anticipate or estimate in their valuations. And so we ended up having a higher unfunded liability than what we expected because of that. And so this year it's hitting us. And our contribution rates for public safety are higher than what they have been in the past. And we are just below, as you'll see, where it says fiscal year 24, we're just below that 100% funding ratio. Now, council's goal in our pension funding policy is to keep that funding ratio at 100%. So we are recommending to utilize the full $4.6 million in reserve to get us back to almost 100%. It will get us to 100% to police and 99.8% to fire. And depending on investments and other unexpected events, we may be able to maintain that 100% going further. It all just depends on what what the PSPRS systems estimates come in at as far as investments, salaries, those sorts of things. So that is the recommendation going into the budget this year.
So Tina, I had a question. You said that should keep us for a while. Can you quantify that? Would that be like a couple years? Would that be, I'm not going to hold you to it. It's going to help me, forecast.
Yep. If everything with the PSPRS system remains stable, so if investments remain at 6 to 7% as far as the return, if there aren't major changes in our public safety retirements or disabilities, if there aren't major changes in public safety's salaries, then I would say for a long time. So I would say maybe 5 or 10 years. But anything can change with any of those figures at any time, and those would impact all of this that we're talking about today.
Sure. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, so general fund unassigned fund balance. We have a 25% to 50% adopted fund balance level. And what that means is that that equates to the percentage of budgeted expenditures and outgoing transfers in relation to the unassigned fund balance. So the council informally adopted a 30% fund balance level a couple of years ago. What we are doing, we are taking a conservative approach again. It's just in case something happens in the next couple of years. We are recommending keeping that level at 35% over the next 5 years, just to get through at least this next year to see where we land from tariffs and recessionary periods. So that's what we would recommend. But by fiscal year 30, we would be at 35%. I do want to point out that at fiscal year 25, we're going to be well over that 50%. But again, it's going to get spent down and used on everything that's included in the capital budget and operating budgets this year and in that full 5-year forecast. So personnel is a big number for for the operating budgets, and so we want to make sure to highlight that and cover any of the changes in our personnel. So it's a 5.3% increase over the fiscal year 25 budget. Part of that comes into account because of the cost of living adjustment, a merit, and steps that are being recommended. So a 2% cost of living adjustment to both pay plans are being recommended to take effect in July, and that just basically means shifting the pay plan from where it is today by 2%. And that is both the open pay plan and the public safety step plan. It also includes a step increase for the employees on the step pay plan, and that is based on anniversary date, so service anniversary date. It also includes a 2% merit increase for employees on the open pay plan. That would be based on the person's position anniversary date, and that is not a guarantee. Manager Walsh, did you want to talk a little bit about what goes into that?
Yes, thank you. So the 2% merit increase, that is something that we've been working on this year, updating our personnel policies and procedures, excuse me, to where that 2% kicks in. So each employee will have their annual evaluation on their position anniversary date. And as long as they get a satisfactory review, so on a 1 to 5 scale, as long as they're getting a 3 or better, then they would qualify for that merit increase. If they're getting less than that, then we'd be looking at a performance improvement plan and setting up a plan for them to be able to get to that 3. And say in 6 months we'd reevaluate them, and if they got to that point, then we'd be able to give them that merit increase. So it is truly merit based, trying to get a little bit closer to what you'd see in the private side on your employees they're doing well. You want to reward them, and those that aren't, you want to set up a plan to where they can get to where they need to be. So thank you.
Thank you. And then as far as full-time employee changes, there are some changes to this year's operating budget. The recommendation is to add 11 new positions across several funds. We'll talk to that in a few minutes. And reclassing 9 positions across a variety of funds as well. So what does that look like? So that includes adding an assistant specialty court coordinator to the courts. It includes adding a police officer, 2 firefighters, adding an administrative assistant to the fire department as well, and then adding an irrigation technician to the Parks Department. That covers the general fund's additional FTEs. For the water fund, I think we've talked about this for a couple years. I know Mr. Yarrow talked about it when he gave his water leak adjustment or his water leak department report as well. We are recommending adding a new crew, a new service crew to the water operations team, and that's an equipment operator A and 2 equipment operator Bs.
Tim, Tina, remind us, I know we want to add more personnel, police and fire, but we are still down. We've been trying to hire. What are we short again? Remind us how many we're short in those departments.
So we were doing really good. I think it was November-ish, we were around 3, only down 3 positions. Since then, we've had a few leave, and we're up to 7 now. So we have 7 vacancies right now, looking to fill those. In police.
In police. In fire?
In fire, I don't believe we have any vacancies.
Okay. Thank you.
And these two fire positions will help towards manning the ambulance and helping out with our manning the ambulance and working towards getting that CO in.
Okay. Thanks.
And then in the wastewater department, adding an administrative assistant. They are the only public works department that does not have their own administrative assistant. And then lastly, in information technology, adding an IT application specialist. So someone that has the strengths and knowledge and experience for all of the different applications across the city. So our general ledger system, the public safety dispatching system. So expertise, knowledge in those particular areas and systems. And then there are also a handful or 9 reclassified positions. So in the finance department, reclassifying an accounting specialist to an accountant, an administrative assistant to an HR analyst, that's in human resources. In risk, there is a reclassification of a safety and risk technician to a safety and risk specialist. Development services, actually downgrading a plans examiner to, I said examiner, plans examiner to a permits coordinator. And then a couple of evidence technician 1s to 2s in the police department. I'm going to skip the streets one and ask Manager Walsh to cover that one, but in utility billing, we're reclassifying a customer service representative to a customer service representative lead, and then in fleet services, reclassifying a fleet technician to a fleet foreman A shift.
I had a question on reclassifications. Can you just kind of explain how that's come to be? Is that as a result of our reporting that we got when we did, what was it, a couple years ago? Is it achievements that they've made? What causes a reclassification?
So I'll start, and Krista can help me if I mess it up. But generally, what you'll see with a reclassification, at times that'll be due to them starting to take on new assignments, working out of class, and in order to make sure that we're compensating them for all the work that they're doing, you'll see a reclassification for those that are for working on duties outside of what they're scoped to do with their position. Other times it'll be basically the department looking and saying, okay, we need to restructure how we're doing things within the department, rather than this position here. Like, for example, the plans examiner. I know last year that was coming from what I was used to. That was important to me to have a plans examiner there. Working with Jason and looking how the city has operated and things are going. Jason, the Development Services Director Moquin, be a little more formal, sorry. He recommended that in place of a plans examiner, he could really use this permit coordinator to really track the projects as they're coming in, see where they're at as they're being reviewed throughout the city. So The reclassifications really, they occur based on what we're seeing as needs in each department and how to better address those needs. Sometimes it's, like I said, initially an employee working out a class because they're stepping up, so we're addressing that. Other times it's recognizing additional needs.
Okay, I just noticed a couple of them are pretty big jumps. So I wanted to see what that
Yes.
was a result of. Thank you.
And at times, they will have somebody in that position. Other times, it'll be a vacant position, and in trying to better address the needs of the department, we'll reclass it without somebody being in there. If I may, while I'm speaking as well, I'll address the HERF reclassification for the crew leader to the street maintenance supervisor. A number of you have mentioned, a desire to have this position of a street maintenance supervisor, and working with Public Works and both Rob and Jack looking at this position. What we were able to do is we looked at the structure of Public Works and how it's set up, and excuse me, and we identified a location where currently we have a structure where the the street supervisor oversees both the typical operations, whether that be signs, street lights, striping, all of the typical operations that you have. He was overseeing both those plus the street maintenance program. So what this does is it brings in another supervisor that will focus mainly on the street maintenance. So the chip seals, the patching, the patching would stay there, but basically the crack seal, the chip seal, and really getting that program that we've got going right now dialed in and staying on top of that. So that's what this position is addressing.
All right, and then insurance costs. So we are seeing an increase in our insurance costs, so health, dental, vision, life, across the board. And it's actually just our health and life insurance premiums this year that we're seeing an increase of about 4.2 to 5.9%. We have not increased the out-of-pocket costs for our employees as far as their premiums are concerned since 2018. The city has absorbed all of those costs. We are recommending a slight increase to those out-of-pocket premiums for employees this year to help absorb some of that increase. So $20 a month for single coverage and $35 a month for family coverage. And then also, because we have a high deductible health plan, we also have HSA contributions that the employer contributes a portion to the employees plan. And we are recommending an increase to the IRS maximum, which is $825 for any single coverage and $1,650 for family coverage. And then as far as vacation and standby, so something new, and I don't know, Manager Walsh, if you want to cover the vacation.
So on this, what we're looking to do, really both of these programs are helping us to be a little bit more competitive with the other agencies that we compete with for employment. So the one-time vacation buyout, we get a number of times, our folks work a lot of hours, and we have a good vacation program. They're unable to use those hours that they accrue as part of their salary. So what this does is it helps reduce that liability on the city of how many hours they're accruing and building up there, and it gives them the opportunity to purchase back some of those PTO hours that they've accrued through that time. So you'll see a similar program with the county, and I believe both Bullhead and Havasu have the opportunity for their employees to buy back basically some of their vacation time. And then the next one, standby pay. We looked at what we currently have as far as standby pay and compared it to what we see with the other cities. And basically this is dialing ours back. Currently, our standby pay, we pay 1 hour for every 3 hours on standby pay. So, generally for an overnight, then you have the phone. That equates anywhere 4 to 5 hours of being paid standby of regular pay. What we saw with the other cities is they'll pay an hour for an hour of overtime for that night for weekdays, and then for a Saturday or a Sunday, they'll pay 2 hours for each of those days of overtime. So basically dialing back that standby pay, and what we're looking at is about an estimated savings of about $300,000 to the city for that.
Question, please. It says 2 hours OT for each non-working day. It doesn't say the weekend, Saturday and Sunday. So if their days off are Tuesday and Wednesday, what's that considered?
So that would be a non-working day for them, but generally, yeah, so any of the days where they're scheduled off, that they're on standby, they would
Thank-
get that. Thank you.
Just one more question on that. This is something that's pretty customary
It
with
is.
the county and so it's not something that although it may seem a little drastic for us because it's different, right? It's
Yeah.
not something that's,
That's correct.
Out of
Thank
the
you, Vice
realm.
Mayor. And really, working with HR, they surveyed a number of cities and towns, our sister cities here, but then also down in the valley and looked around to see what was being paid for standby, and this is right in that league. We were actually quite a bit more than what we were seeing with the other
okay.
cities.
To protect our people. I just
Yep,
want to make
no,
sure we're
absolutely.
being customary with what's going on in the industry, so.
Yes,
All right,
thank you.
perfect. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I'll just add one other comment on that. That does not restrict them. They still would get the call-out, emergency call-out pay. So if they are called out, they still get compensated for that. We have a very generous program on that. It's 2 hours. If it's 5 minutes, if they go out to work, they get paid 2 hours overtime, so.
And we know that's happening.
Correct. So I
Yes.
just, we're not touching that part of the
Okay,
program.
great. Thank you for the clarification.
You're welcome.
All right, I'll hand it over to Manager Walsh to cover the operating budgets.
Are we good to start our deep dive here, or anybody need a break, or we're good to go? All right, hearing none, we'll jump right in. So what we'll do is we'll go department by department and just hit some of the highlights as far as any changes that we have in those departments. So please, as we go through these, please stop me and ask any questions that you might have. So the first one is the city council budget. We have, let's see, just a slightly increase to personnel just due to the increase in benefit costs. Other than that, not really any significant changes.
Sorry, I just was going to add one thing. Although there are no significant changes, there were several line items that the council just doesn't use: office supplies and some of the dues and memberships. And so what we ended up doing is reducing those line items and increasing training. So even though there's no significant change, there is a bigger training budget. I'm sorry,
No,
I
that's
just wanted to
perfect.
make sure council was aware of that.
And that's perfect. And I will just point out, I think it's great, this council has been very active in wanting to go to the trainings, to the conferences, and really advocate for the city. Just had the trip out to DC this week, and I think there's such benefit in having council as active as you all are and pleading the case for the city. So working with Tina, we were able to increase that travel budget, increase that training budget to be able to attend those things. And we were able to identify some of the things that weren't being used that aren't typically used and transferred in there. So able to do that without really a significant increase. Next, we'll go to the city manager budget. This one, not a whole lot of increase. Let's see, there are, I think we do have some increases for trainings for, what we've been trying to do is any of the city manager trainings, the ACMA, any trainings that you typically see the city manager with. I've been having Tina come along with me. That way we have that continuity of both the city manager and the deputy city manager there. We've also got some trainings for our youth advisory council and community programming opportunities. So that's some of the increases that you'll see in there. That's a 2% increase from last year's budget. City attorney budget, no significant changes really with this budget. There's a 4.8% increase on that one from last year's, but really just due to the COLA and merit increases. And please stop me if I'm going too fast on any of these. City clerk budget, let's see. We actually saw a decrease in this budget, and that's due to no election being held this year, so Annie's saving us money. And then, let's see, the courts. There is let's see, a 5%, a 5.7 increase from last year's budget. And this one, we do have the new person for the new position for this department, this being the Assistant Specialty Courts Coordinator. The judge talked a little bit about that in his presentation to council last week. I think that was last week? Yes, last week. Other than that, not really any significant changes. Development services, as we talked, we have the reclassification of a plans examiner to a permits coordinator. And this one, I really like the idea that Director Moquin came up with. It is having that person that will track those permits as they come in, those submittals as they come in. They'll be able to know at all times where those permits are. As our developers are asking for, hey, what's the status, where are we at? That will be the lead person that can help them know what's been done, what still needs to be done, and when to expect their permits coming out. Please.
So, with the creation of this new position, I'm wondering if we can go back to getting the council getting reports on the permits. For a little while, we were receiving just kind of an Excel spreadsheet that talked about what permits had been opened and tracking how long they were taking and where they were at.
Absolutely.
I don't think there was a good process in place for tracking them then, and it was very laborious, but if that's what this new person's job is, it'd be really great to be able to follow those along and see the progress.
Absolutely. No, that's great. And really, one of the initiatives that we're looking at next year, we're currently in the process of getting a new permitting software put in place. We're about halfway there. I think September, Jason, we're looking.
Allegedly.
Yeah, Jerry and Jason are giving me the head nods. So September's, we're looking at going live with our permitting software, and part of that software will be able to help assist in that tracking as well. So definitely we'll be providing those updates to you. Part of our plan too, and I think I've talked a little bit about it with Jason, so I'll be talking more with him, is to get that story out there and let the public know, let those potential developers that want to come here know what that time frame looks like. So give an average, okay, so we're in May now. In April, our average building permit took 10 days to get out. Our average commercial permit took, 15 days to get out. And have those numbers up there, real numbers, not just, hey, this is what we're shooting for, but this is what it took us last month to get one of these out. That way they can see, hey, we're open for business. We're ready to, we want you here, and we're ready to help you with that. So
That would be really helpful because we are still hearing that it's very difficult to get through the city's process. So trying to combat that old story, I think would help the city a lot.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So I have a couple things, Tim, on the, in addition to what Counselor Staley had asked for, just the whole timeline tracking. I'm just curious, with the expenditure of the software and the implementation of the software, how much of this person's workload is going to be done by this software? You see where I'm tracking?
Yes, so it will be a combination of both. The software will help. This person will be the point person for them as too. So as we get into the software, obviously we're still learning the software and learning of all the capabilities that it can do. But I would anticipate there will be a hybrid of the two. With all of our customers, we have customers that are very proficient online and can get online and find those things. We have a number of customers that aren't very proficient. So this person would be that point person that those that want to call in and ask for, okay, where's my project? What do I need to do? They would be that point person for them.
Okay.
So really a combination of the two to really serve all of our customers.
Okay, and then in addition to the tracking and the timeline, I'd like to also request that this individual notify council of projects that are coming in.
Absolutely.
So as we get that first
Yes.
notification of new projects. And then lastly, I know that we're going to cover this, and this is going to come across in a lot of different departments, but the credit card processing fees. So I wanted to just get that out there
Yeah.
in the beginning because I had a question, because should council adopt to increase and actually pass those on to the public, I had asked the question about those credit card processing fees and if they were in the budget in anticipation of them being decreased or increased. And I understand you have to put in worst case scenario, as if council didn't approve to, pass those on. So, but the impact, according to what you replied back to me, was 11% increase, close to 600,000. So that is a huge impact across the budget in many departments. So in looking at these increases, I take into account, and I just wanted to make council aware that part of that is credit card processing fees too. And it's not a small number, so depending on what department. So anyways, I just wanted to put that out there, and then I will not bring it up every single department that we dive into. Thank you.
Appreciate it. No, and that's absolutely correct. Because the credit card processing fees are scheduled to be discussed at our next meeting, and then a public hearing being scheduled, I think, 60 days after that. So because that has not been decided yet by council, we're planning on, as you said, worst case scenario to where that we will continue to cover those costs. So should council decide in the next few meetings with credit cards to pass that on, that would help reduce what we're seeing in the budgets.
Thank you.
I have something to add to that. I was just waiting for the right time. I was reading on this, and certain government agencies, I don't know if it applies to Arizona, have to notify those people. Do we have to do that via mail? How would we have to notify the constituents?
So we would have to go through the normal process of what we're currently doing with our other fees, right? The public hearing process. And as far as the notification's concerned, the customers on their receipt will see, just like we do now when we go to some of the restaurants, an additional transaction fee or credit card fee of X number of percent or dollars, cents.
Okay, thank you.
All right, let's see. So development services, I think that covers it. Economic development, looking at a 1% increase from last year's budget for economic development. No major increases, no major changes with that. Tourism. Let's see, I lost. Okay, so going on to tourism, we do have a few, and this one's a double page, so I'm going to skip to the next one just to hit some of the highlights. So we do have an increase on this one. So the Tourism Initiative Grant, this is a grant that has been discussed at Economic Development Advisory Commission. Thank you. And is actually scheduled to come before council, I believe on the 2nd, or June 2nd is when it'll be before council. This is a grant that has been discussed and proposed that would incentivize, saying it right? Okay. Incentivize our tourism leaning businesses and nonprofits to make improvements to their buildings. I think one of the ideas that had kind of brought this idea forward was the theater downtown is looking at some assistance or requesting some assistance with a sign on the front of the building. This program would be the type of program that would allow for the city to provide a grant to assist in that sign. So that's what you're seeing here. We're proposing a $30,000 maximum on that grant, so that's what would be included in the budget, would be a $30,000 increase in this fund. Also included is a dome experience tent. And and I'll have Bennett correct me if I'm wrong, but I think my idea on understanding what a dome experience tent is crossing a bounce house with the Las Vegas Dome, or the Sphere in Las Vegas. So basically a blow-up sphere that you can go in with a projector inside that will, give you this 360 visual experience. Our plan is to have that, or it's being proposed to have that for the Route 66 Festival, and then we would use it for other type events and those types of things. So.
30,000. 30,000. 30,000. 30,000. 30,000. 30,000. 30,000. 30,000. 30,000. 30,000. 30,000. 30,000. 30,000. 30,000. 30,000. 30,000. 30,000. 30,000. 30,000. 30,000. 30,000. 30,000. 30,000. 30,000. 30,000. 30,000. 30,000. 30,000. 30,000. 30,000. 30,000. 30,000. 30,000. 30,000. 30,000. 30,000. 30,000. 30,000. 30,000. 30,000. 30,000. 30,000. 30,000. 30,000. 30,000. 30,000. 30,000. 30,000. 30,000. 30,000. 30,000. 30,000. 30,000. 30,000. 30,000. 30,000. 30,000. 30,000. 30,000. 30,000
I'm going to ask Bennett for some help on that. So Bennett says that he believes it's around 30 to 50 people that could fit in there. So, the
I have
idea
que-
being for our festivals and those types of things, it would be another attraction that we could include with it.
I have a question. On all of these, you got, of course, your COLAs and the 2% merit increase being applied to all salaries. That makes it sound as if everybody's going to get a merit increase. Is that true?
No. So as I mentioned previously, the COLA would be across the board. So
Right.
that's recognizing inflation and really trying to keep our salary range competitive with the other cities and counties. The merit increase goes back to basically in order to receive that merit increase, that employee would have to receive a satisfactory review at their evaluation timeframe.
Now, you'll have employees that don't qualify for the merit pay, but will still stay on with the COLA.
They would
correct?
get the COLA, but may not may not.
And Councilman Savage, because we don't know who or what department may not qualify, we just always assume the worst from the perspective of fiscal impact wise and assume that everyone is going to qualify for that because everyone is just an excellent employee and performs to at least satisfactory levels.
And we've got, great employees, and that would be our hope and our intent is to get it to where everybody can get to that point and everybody's receiving that merit. But we recognize, when you have a business or a government that employs, 400 plus people, you're going to have some that don't meet it. And the intent with this is to really, there's a couple of things with it. You're going to have employees that are talking to their bosses, hey, my review is due. I don't want to miss out on that merit increase. So it really incentivizes those performance reviews to be done. But two, it puts that accountability back on the employee to be doing their job to be able to receive that merit increase. But we also have the opportunity to, if they're not there, it gives that opportunity to that manager to sit down with them and say, you're not quite at a 3 yet. These are the things that you need to do to get to a 3. And in 6 months, if you're meeting all those, we'll come back and talk and we'll get you there. And at that point, they would be eligible for that merit increase. All right. Good on this. Let's see. And then Route 66 Centennial, there's some increased funding for the upcoming 66 Centennial. And then there is a decrease in utility costs with the sale of 519 going through. And then moving on to engineering. Engineering saw a 1.8% increase from their 25 budget. This one, we looked at the structure and we have 2 GIS technicians that were housed under engineering. We actually lost both of those technicians. They moved on to other opportunities. And in that transition, we reevaluated and are looking and basically found that it would be better to have those GIS technicians based on the really technical role in information technology to bring them back under IT. So moving both of those positions under IT. So that is part of the decrease, that is a decrease to the engineering budget. That will be an increase to the IT budget coming up. And we're happy to say that we've got one of those filled. Actually, he was in that position some time back, so we were able to bring him back on board and looking to fill that second position still. Let's see. And then you'll see a supplies and services increase. We have our GIS mapping online. We provide GIS mapping. The county also provides GIS mapping. So engineering's reached out to the county to see if there isn't a way of cost savings to coordinate with them on the imagery and update our imagery with them so that we both see a decrease in that cost. And I think that covers it for engineering. Excuse me. Moving on to finance. Finance, we have, as was mentioned, the reclassification of an accounting specialist to an accountant. Other than that, just a 0.7% increase for finance. And then, let's see, utility billing and licensing. This one, we have a reclassification of a customer service representative to a customer services representative lead, providing that lead position for the front staff. And I think that's the biggest change that you'll see there, and that resulted in a 11.4% increase, that and some of the COLAs and merits. And then fire administration, this one, as was mentioned, the PSPRS, trying to keep up with that. And then we're also adding 2 firefighters to man the ambulance, and then 1 administrative assistant. This position, with a lot of the various accounting, one for the CON, for the application for the CON, and all of the paperwork and accounting and all of that goes with that application, along with a number of the grant opportunities that they're working on. Fire proposed basically that they needed additional assistance in the office. So that's this additional administrative assistant will help with all of those. And then, like I said, the 2 firefighters would go towards the ambulance, manning the ambulance along with, all of the firefighter duties as well. Let's see, I think that covers most of it. We have some capital outlay, some projects there. Radio repeater replacement, heavy rescue equipment replacement for fire engine 234, thermal imaging cameras, 3 Lucas devices, fitness equipment for 23, and the second of 5 installments for the replacement of 12 cardiac monitors. That is fire. The dispatch center, no real changes to the dispatch center.
On the capital outlay, the $74,000 for the 6th phone service, that is something that the state typically pays for. We aren't sure if they are going to pay for it this year, so we've included it in the budget. If the state pays for it, it won't be spent.
Thank you. And then on to HR and risk management. This one, we are looking at a couple of, again, a structural change to HR, or just a couple of tweaks to HR, adding, basically reclassifying the admin assistant 1 to the human resources analyst. Currently, we have a full-time admin assistant. We looked at what we could do in order to add this HR analyst, and really the HR analyst will help in some of those more technical personnel issues, looking at, reviewing certain things that have happened and really making sure that the city's protected and that we're dealing fairly with our employees. So in order to create this human resources analyst position, we're reclassifying our current admin assistant position to the HR analyst position, and then taking that admin position and converting it to a part-time position. So ultimately, the admin goes to part-time, and then we will have an HR analyst as well. So. And then we also have in there for supplies and services, we have basically a compensation study as well added in there to review the city's pay plans. Adding a Power Business Intelligence software subscription. And we basically are consolidating all of our recruitment costs. Before we had, police had a separate recruitment cost for police recruitment. We're going to bring that in under HR. It'll still be utilized for police, but it'll all be housed in the same location for consistency. I think that happens that. And then looking at remodeling the existing workspace to add 2 offices and reconfigure the storage area. And then continue with HR and risk. Let's see. This one, we're reclassifying our current risk technician, FTE, to a safety and risk specialist. He's been doing a great job in there, and this is one where he's basically starting to do some of those duties outside of his current scope, and this is recognizing that. And then, I think that covers that one. And then IT, as was mentioned, we're moving the 2 GIS technicians into IT from the engineering department, so that's a big part of the increase here. One of them was reclassed to a coordinator, so again, this was moving them over, but then looking at, okay, to meet the city's needs, is the technician the right position, or is a coordinator a better fit? So that's where the GIS technician 2 was reclassed to a coordinator, and then the GIS technician 1 was reclassed to the technician 2 was reclassed to an administrator. Get my names right. And then, let's see, a lot of the software stuff, really just getting our software up to date, looking at website updates, migrations, AI implementation, and GIS upgrades. And then all of our subscriptions. Then recreation. Yes. You bet. You're the mayor.
We might need to push those breaks to 10 minutes. Seems like it almost goes way past the 5, but anyway. Any questions so far for anybody? Okay, on we go.
All righty. Next is recreation. This one, just for recreation, is about a 6% increase total. There was some seasonal part-time salaries increase due to the expansion of our recreation program offerings. Then pools, let's see, on this one, we have some increased pool hours, so there's some additional part-time salaries on that. And then we had, on this one, you'll see an increase in the supplies and services due to, we had a gas meter that had been reading almost no usage. It was a great meter for the city. However, Unisource didn't think it was so good, so they've replaced that meter, and we've seen a significant increase in our at the pool, the natural gas charges for heating the pool. So that was a nice gift from Unisource for all those years, but they're that has ended. That gravy train has ended. And then let's see, we also had a one-time repair of a 6-inch pipe extending from the filters to the pumps. And then a couple of capital outlays, pool vacuum, and some stairs at Centennial Pool. Yes.
Is that $65,000 annually in natural gas?
Yes, sir.
And that's just to heat the pool?
That's to heat the pool, that's correct. And we are looking at, staff is looking at some other options to help conserve the heat in the pool, some possible covers, doing some additional research.
Will
into
solar
those
help
there.
with that?
So it's a gas heater, so it wouldn't help on that, but that is another option to look at, possibly an electric heater and solar for that. So, yeah, we're trying to look at all options to get as best efficient as we can on it. Alrighty. Moving on to the golf course. On this one, let's see, we have an increase to our supplies and services due to a continued use of a golf course consultant services and adding GPS units to to the proposed replacement golf cart fleet. As y'all recall, we had some concerns regarding the the course and the condition it was in. We hired a consultant to come in. He did an evaluation and provided a number of great recommendations on how to improve the golf course. We're looking to bring him back annually just to do an annual analysis of the course and provide those recommendations. So that's where you're seeing that. When we get to capital projects, we do have a capital project that will replace the golf cart, wow, losing my words, the golf carts, the current golf carts that we have. So these GPS units would then be part of those new carts. The units are beneficial both to us and to our users. As a golfer, you know, I've got terrible distance, so as you get out there and your golf cart will tell you how far you are away from the green, so the users love it. For the golf course, it's a great benefit because it allows for us to geofence the course, which restricts the carts to just the course, not going off into the deserts and causing more damage to the carts. Also prevents them from going up all the way up to the greens, so it helps those greens. And I believe it'll even, if they are driving down the fairway and not observing the 90-degree, it'll also alert them that they need to get back on the cart path. So it'll really help us. The GPS helps us in a number of ways to preserve our course and preserve the carts.
I have lots of questions. How do we stop the bleeding of what the golf course is costing us? I mean, if you look at this, it steadily went up every year, really ballooned in the last 3 years. And I don't see any change in sight.
And I appreciate that question, and that is one thing that we looked at, and I think probably looking, overall at the overall golf course budget, you have seen an increase. I know in '22, it dropped significantly, but that was because we were able to utilize ARPA funds in order to help offset those costs. You know, there's a couple, it's a great question, and really I think it's a business decision for council, but I will say from a staff perspective, one of the things that we're looking at a number of things to help increase revenues there, to help offset the increase in costs. One, getting the condition of the course up to where we all want it to be, bringing our consultant on and implementing those. We have the golf commission now that are also helping advise on those types of improvements that need to be. But I think getting the condition of the course where we want it to be, and then really working on the marketing and advertising for the course to bring more and more people in. You know, the more people we get there, the more revenues we'll see.
What percentage of the people that live in Kingman, Arizona use that golf course?
I don't know if I have that number. I don't know, Mike, do you have that? But I can get that. We'll get that number and get it to council. I know.
On average, a municipal course, 10 to 12% of the people that live in the municipality use it.
Mm-hmm.
And
Oh,
then
I see what you're saying.
all the taxpayers are paying for it. That's all I'm saying. With the kind of losses that we've had on it, and especially the last 3 years, but if you go back as far as you want to go, it's a losing proposition, and it's a lot of taxpayer money going to a golf course.
And I appreciate the perspective, and really I think generally parks and golf, and again I'm going to default to really it's a council business decision on, you know, which amenities that council would like to see. Generally, your golf course, municipal golf courses, they'll do better than what you'll see, you know, like your parks. Obviously, there's not a whole lot of return when it comes to parks and trails and those types of things. It becomes a question for council as far as quality of life and what types of amenities we want to offer, and really ultimately is a
And
council
whether we
decision.
run it or somebody else does.
There's that.
That's what I'm looking at. If you look back, we haven't done a good job. And I don't see it improving. I see it getting worse.
Well, and I would just like to say, you know, to to your point, and well, to Manager Walsh's point, it's a quality of life. None of our Parks and Recreation amenities pay for themselves.
But none of them bleed money like
But,
this.
but I will tell you that the Golf Commission is working towards, I had several meetings with the potential golf commissioners when I was looking at applications, and, you know, the ultimate goal is to get it to be an enterprise fund. Will it get there? I don't know, but I think that we have to do the things that we need to do to get it to a place to where we can attract all those golfers in from out of town, and we can start charging more rates for out-of-town people. They will come if they have something to come to, and they appreciate it. So to your point, I look at it as another tourism draw, as well
But our
as.
history doesn't show that.
Oh, I totally agree with you. You can't lie with those numbers, Counselor Ward. I would never dispute those numbers. They're in black and white. But what I can tell you is it's a huge quality of life amenity for our citizens, and our golf course is talked about at several other golf courses around the state. So we're moving in the right direction. It's just early in the process. How's that? We haven't had a golf commission for how long? How long has it been since
Well,
we have not had a golf commission?
Even they're going to want to spend more money, and when
Well-
they do, this is going to go even worse.
Well, and to your point, I don't disagree with you, but like later, when we start talking about capital improvement projects, you know, putting the lighting on the driving range, and I was gonna save this for later, you know, I wanna see those kinds of things help to pay for themselves, or at least be increased enough to cover, so we don't have such a shortfall.
Over
So-
how many years? That's what, I mean,
I understand,
The
but
numbers
then
don't
if we're
lie.
gonna assess the golf course, then I think we need to assess the pools, and we
Pools,
need to
same
assess, yeah, we need to assess all the amenities, because the entire Parks and Recreation is a losing
I understand that,
proposition.
but they don't lose the kind of money the golf course does.
True, but for example, we are trying to attract doctors. We are in desperate need of doctors. I bet one of the questions the hospital gets asked every day, does your community have a nice golf course?
I'm not saying get rid of the golf course. I'm saying maybe we don't need to be the one running it.
Well, and I would agree, maybe we look at and do some investigation on the bar and grill side, and maybe we go back to the years way back when it was, those parts of it were privatized, and, you know, we can, you know, take a percentage, but we don't necessarily have to operate it with staff and overhead and all those things, so, yeah.
Well, plus, if you just look at this loss, and then you look at what we're gonna put into it through the capital projects funds, you're close to $1 million in losses. I mean, in money that you're not gonna get back.
Well, pools are the same.
Yeah, I wanna-
Pools
let's
operate for
go
3
back
months of
to-
the year,
Yeah,
and look at
let's
the money and costs we spend on it.
Let's go back to just the gas bill for the pools, and let's go back to, you know, moving the below-ground electrical room above ground. So we could do that, but it's going to impact our citizens in a negative way, and I'm just not going to jump on that. I can't support that. But to your point, very valid.
No, you brought up some good points. And it's unfortunate, but quality of life is important. We've seen that in our citizen surveys. And this is one of those factors.
And I don't disagree with that. What I'm saying is, how long do you lose money before you say, this is enough, we need to look at some other way of doing it?
Mr. Mearsman, I know has some.
Just,
some
all
light
I
on
would
this.
say is I think one of the main reasons it's going up the past several years is that we've started putting money into the golf course, equipment-wise. For many years, we had hardly any new equipment, so we've been putting more and more money into the golf course as well. So, and the other thing of it is, I agree with what you guys have said too. If you want doctors in your hospitals and businesses in your business park, it's pretty important to have a golf course. That golf course is pretty important, and it's pretty important to all the people that live in that neighborhood. And you look at the youth that play our golf course, a lot of juniors, our junior program is great. So there's just a lot, I think, that goes into it. And really, percentage-wise, the golf course is the closest to paying for itself than anything in our department. It's closer than ball fields, it's closer than pools, it's closer than all the people that go out and just use the park. So it just is expensive to maintain a golf course, it really is.
I understand that, but what percentage of the people in this city really use the golf course?
I don't know that we have that exact, I think we can get that information probably from, Josh probably has the better information on that about credit card usage there and things like that. I think we'll check into that, but we don't really have a resident rate and a non-resident rate. And with the new rates that we're looking at having resident discounts, so that we're gonna increase the rates and then have resident discounts, so that we'll be charging the non-residents more. So,
Well, and you bring up a good question, Smiley, about that. And of course, that's something we should ask about all our amenities. We should have that information at least, because we are losing money on them. Absolutely right. But we should maybe look into that. Josh is good about finding, getting numbers as far as cell phone tracking and that kind of stuff.
right.
So,
And I would say to that, Counselor Smiley, how much are we going to spend on the Sunbelt Park? And we're not even going to charge to go to that park, but it's going to benefit our citizens. There's, a lot of usage. So, I mean, I see a golf course report in the future of what does it look like to privatize some of it and to, keep some of it serviced by the city.
And like what I always say about that too, like all of our amenities in our park system, part of the challenge is that we pay our employees a living wage. And that way they can afford to buy cars in our city. They can afford to buy things at our stores. And you can job it out, and they're not going to pay their employees a living wage in many cases. And then they're not able to put back into the economy either. So, I think there's challenges to a lot of that.
But if you look at the last 2 or 3 years, I went back to last year's budget, your projections on how much you were going to expand the golf and how many more rounds of play, instead of going up, they're actually going down.
Well, they went down since COVID. COVID was a boom year because the California closed and Nevada closed, and so all those people came here. So the whole time during COVID, basically, we stayed open. And every day at our golf course was like the busiest day we ever had during COVID. So there's that is something else that shows that too.
Yeah, I'm just saying that your costs are going up, your rounds of play are going down. How do you bring that together, Mike, to where it isn't bleeding money?
So we're also looking at a rate increase, correct? That
Yes.
is not calculated in those figures that Counselor Ward may have, right?
Right.
So, I mean, like I said, I think we're moving in the right direction. It just takes us a hot minute to get off of first base, right?
Right. Yeah, I think so too. I don't think there's any doubt about it, and I think it's going to help us to have a resident rate and a non-resident rate, which we're going to have a resident discount instead of asking people when they come in the door, you're a resident, we're going to charge you more if you're a non-resident. We're not going to say it that way. We're going to say if you're a resident, you get a discount. So I think it's a more friendly way to keep the customers happy.
Well, and with the course improvements, word will get around, and we will have those golfers come from other areas. So paying the non-resident discount.
That's right.
well, and Vice Mayor, you did bring up one other fact, privatization. We actually have gone down that road before, and we encountered some problems, and that's why we had to take it back. So, yes, we need to always consider that and keep that in mind.
That's all
But-
I'm asking.
But we
is that
also,
look at
we
different
still want to
ways
keep
of
our
doing
core
it.
golfers coming all the time and not complaining that this service is not happening. So it's give and take.
I'm done.
No, you brought, as protecting our citizens, you bring up some valid points, so appreciate it.
And I, thank you, and I appreciate the perspective too, because it is, like was mentioned, we do want to get it to where we're as close to breaking even or making money as we can. And our first step is getting it in that condition that people want to be there. And then two, we're looking at rate increases. And this year we did and that'll be at our next meeting, but we did a modest rate increase to start, really knowing that we have a commission coming. So probably next year we'll be looking a lot more in depth with the commission on where those rates would be and where they should be to help cover some of those costs as well. So.
I think it would be helpful if we had some more concrete timelines, like we expect this much improvement by this date, and we want to see, revenues increase by this much. And then if we had something a little bit more solid to go by, it would be easier to make decisions that it's either time to privatize the whole thing or time to sell the course because we're not making any progress. It feels like we have this conversation once a year. It's almost like we're just kicking the can, and we're not necessarily, if we're making progress, it doesn't feel like it because we don't see any data other than the expenses continuing to climb. So if maybe we had some stronger goals and benchmarks, what are we specifically working on to make improvements and maybe do some real studies on privatizing. I think privatizing didn't work based on just the person that was running it, not necessarily that system doesn't. So being a little more serious about what improvements, how much of what, by when, would feel like we're really trying to get somewhere.
Thank you for that. And definitely we are, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I wholeheartedly agree. I don't know if I bring you up later when we actually get into our CIP, but, I would like to know or see if there's a marketing plan for the golf course. And I would like to see something, presented to council. This is how we're going to market the golf course. This is the expectation that, rate increases as we're going to schedule them. And maybe instead of bringing back the whole annual course evaluation on an annual basis, maybe it's every 2 years, so we can not have to pay that, and maybe we can put some other funds towards something else. So I don't know, but is there a marketing plan for the golf course?
Basically, we just advertise word of mouth for the most part. We don't have a lot of money budgeted for advertising. So, and we are trying to do other things, reach out to the neighboring cities so that when their course is closed for overseeding, we're trying to capture more of their business at that time too, so.
Right. I think we just need a more formal plan,
Yeah.
and I think that will help council, especially with these benchmarks that some of us need.
Something else I would say too, that we haven't raised the rates, I think, in 6 years, and the costs have continued to go up, like everything else. So, I think that's going to be a pretty important thing, maybe that we look at increasing the rates a little more frequently, maybe.
And I will say, I think to those, both of those points, with the commission in place, that gives us another group that we can take and really flesh those ideas out, both through staff and with the commission, working on, attacking the list that we got from the consultant to really go through. And that really is Mike's plan with that list from the consultant, is to look through all those recommendations and work through that with the commission, get a plan in place to put those in place. But then, yes, marketing is definitely a great idea, and working with them, they're golfers, they know where they go to golf and why they go to golf there, and tapping into that expertise of what they like around here and implementing it on our course and attracting new golfers that way is definitely a plan.
Out of our two sister cities, we're the only one that owns a municipal golf course, aren't we? I don't think Havasu does, and I don't think
Havasu?
Bullhead does. They have several, but they're not owned by the city. I tried
We'd have
to
to
find
verify, yeah, I'm
somebody
not sure.
around us to compare to, and I couldn't. Most municipalities, a lot of them have gotten rid of their golf courses. They haven't gotten rid of them, but they've either farmed them out or sold them off. And I was just curious. I couldn't find any data to support for or against it. But I know that in the last few years, a lot of communities have hired companies to come in and run the golf course. And that's all I got.
Yeah, I have a question for staff. How many years now have we had control back of the bar and restaurant at the golf course?
2019?
Okay. Can we get data, for the, that's what'd you say, 18? So
19, I think it
19.
was.
So 6 years. Can we look at the last 6 years that it was under private contract to see what we made? Because they paid us a commission, correct?
They did, and we lost money back then as well. Councilman Ward
Well,
has the
no,
full
I'm
thing.
just talking
but-
about the bar and restaurant part.
Oh, as far
Since
as what we
we've taken
paid
the bar and
them.
restaurant back over, has that added to our loss?
Got it. Yep.
That's what I'm
we can
looking
do that.
at. If we got rid of the employees and had outsourced the bar and restaurant, would we be better off? How much are we losing there? Because I know with overtime hours and everything else, I'm sure the city is paying more than when it was a private contractor.
We can look at that. And you'll see in here, one of the things too, planned for this year is to replace those AC units. I know if you've been in there lately, those AC units are Band-Aided together. So replacing those, I think, will definitely make that bar and grill a lot more welcoming. You can go in there and eat without sweating, and it'll be good.
I have a question for Mike. How many seasonal passes do we have?
I don't really have that number on the tip of my tongue. We can get that information and give it to you.
Because you
get it
do
to
have
you.
full week services and Monday through Friday services on those passes, correct?
Yes.
Are you going to be looking at the rates on those as well?
Oh, yes, we've looked at the rates on every rate that we have.
Okay.
I just had a comment for Councilmember Walker. So we staff the bar and grill. There's like one full-time person and the rest are part-time. So
Okay.
there's really not a lot of overtime.
Okay, but I know
It's
the
still
service.
personnel costs,
The
but-
service hours have been cut since the city took it over.
Correct. But we've always just had the one full-time
Okay.
person. So the rest are part-time, so.
And
Just
part of
so-
the thing with that, we don't allow our employees to sit there and partake with the customers too. And I think some of that went
Well,
on when there was,
I don't think the city should be in the
Right.
bar and restaurant business. We should have never taken that back over,
Right.
in my opinion. So I think, getting it back privatized would give better service and we wouldn't be on the hook for,
as long as it's a good company that we can get to do it, I think that'd be worth looking at for sure.
I think it'd be better than what we have now.
And Councilman Walker, if I can just get clarification. So back when the contractor was running the pro shop and the bar and restaurant,
Yes.
are you looking at just the bar and restaurant data or both or?
If you want to do both.
Okay.
Because I don't really have a problem with the city running the pro shop. I don't think that's a big issue.
Okay.
But I think the bigger cost is in the food, the beer, that part of the business, and I could be wrong.
Okay, thank you.
Those are good, all counselors, those are all good points, so appreciate the. It's tough. I mean, I'm not a golfer, but I also see the value. I have a lot of friends that are doctors, and I see the value of that golf course, and businessmen. I mean, Keith, your business, I'm sure you've conducted a lot of business on the golf course. We all do,
Over
but,
the years, yes.
yes. So there is a value in it. The question is that balance.
I see the value. I mean, I know you need it to draw the doctors
Right.
and lawyers and the people that like to play golf.
They do.
I mean, I've worked with people all my life that was what they lived for, was playing golf. I never got into golf, and that's not my reason for doing this. It'd be the same thing. I'm into the shooting sports, but if we were running a range and losing that kind of money, I would be all over it. And I'm just saying, it's nothing personal with me. It's just the amount we lose.
Thank you.
All right, so with golf then, just looking at the capital outlay, there's, as Mike mentioned, there's a couple of equipment there, and really this equipment is needed in order to continue to improve the course there and the conditions. A top dresser, a dethatching unit, an aeravator. I'll let Mike explain if there's any questions on what that is. And then the AC units for the grill and pro shop. And then lastly, looking at putting a turf strip at the driving range. If you've been out on the driving range, because we are all grass out there, all natural grass, it definitely takes a beating, and number of divots. This will allow some back and forth to allow for both the natural grass, driving off the driving range, hitting off the natural grass, but in the off season, being able to switch back to this turf strip so that we're not damaging the grass and allowing it to come back as well. So is that on to parks? Let's see. We have one irrigation technician that we're adding. This really to help look at the irrigation and really manage our irrigation systems.
I had a question on that. Is that going to be shared Like, will that technician also go to the golf course as well? Or is that just strictly
No,
for
that's
parks?
that's just for parks.
Okay. Do you have one?
We have one at the golf course
Okay.
as well.
Thank you.
About the irrigation. All these areas that we have around town that are landscaped and they are in our right of way and they have irrigation problems, whose responsibility is that to fix those?
That's our,
So it's part of,
right, that's part of why we need this new irrigation person. And our irrigation systems are getting really outdated and a lot of leaks, more challenging, and so the more of that you have, and plus we keep adding things and no more employees, so that's what we're trying to do, is get that, where we can do a better job of all those things.
I was just noticing a pine tree by the library on Beverly, it's not along the walking path, but it's on Beverly, and that section's landscaped there. And the pine tree's turning brown. And so it obviously needs more water. So does your irrigation person kind of walk through all of those areas and look for those problems?
They try to, and, we can, obviously, if you see something like that, let us know, because we don't see everything every day, but I'm always open to that. But they do that, they look at everything, and our superintendent level people look at it and then make the jobs out that they're going to work on, so. But there's just challenge with the you get a leak and all the mud and stones and everything get in the pipes, and so obviously, probably better than anybody else about that kind of stuff, but those kind of challenges we have a lot of. And older pipes, like Hubbs Park is really old, the irrigation system there is really old. Mojave Park, our oldest parks, are the more challenging ones, so.
So you just have one person?
No, we have two.
You have two?
But
Okay. Yeah, because that is a
We
lot.
really need three with what's added, and once we get Sunbelt Park going too, that's going to be more challenging, so. All those things are just building, basically.
Okay, thank you.
All right, and then we have, let's see, some upgrades, field upgrades to Southside Park, resurfacing the tennis courts at Centennial Park, working on a holiday light display for Locomotive Park, new picnic tables, bike repair stations for the trailheads. And then, let's see, capital outlay, looking at a skid steer concrete mixing bucket attachment, box trailer for tables, chairs, events, supplies. This one, Parks does a great job on always any events that we have. They're setting up, taking down, all of that. And they haul the tables in, they unload the tables, then they haul them back, unload them there. What this does is it'll allow them to have it all in one place. They can store it in there. They don't have to unload it after each event. They just unload it and load it and can keep there. So really a efficiency there. Let's see, a tilt deck equipment trailer, a Bobcat, and a Toro Grandmaster. On to police. Let's see, on this one, got the COLA and merit increases. We also have the PSPRS that we've discussed. And then looking at one police officer, additional police officer, and then the reclassification of 2 evidence technicians. And then we have replacement of 8 vehicles with this budget here. So looking at the replacement of 8 vehicles and 1 new vehicle for the additional police officer.
Tim, of course, the negative variance in budget, that's because of we're short personnel, as it says, personnel. That's huge, 16%. So,
I'm sorry, say that again?
well, in personnel, under
Oh, yeah,
personnel
yeah,
item, it
negative
says that,
16%,
it's
yeah.
which is a huge variance.
Yeah, and yeah, like you mentioned, we're down staff, so
Right.
once we can
Okay.
get that, I hope to get those filled soon. Public Works, we're looking at a 1.3% increase. Really not a lot of significant changes on this one. And then streets operations, let's see, supplies and services. Let's see, storm drain inventory and inspection. Our expanded weed control program, hiring an outside party to maintain downtown landscaping, vehicle and handheld radio replacements, adding bike lanes, and renting a stacker and crusher for concrete and asphalt that we cut out as part of our utility repairs. And then looking at a monitor tester replacement, a hydroax. That's my favorite. I'm not sure what it looks like, but just the name is cool. Side spreader, powered kick broom replacement, traffic signal buttons, signal face relocation, and pedestrian station replacements. Then in streets repair and maintenance, this is the reclassification of a crew leader to the street maintenance supervisor over pavement preservation. And then that is, we got the capital lease decrease because of no newer replacement vehicles being purchased. And then we're in year 3 of the 7-year program for the street maintenance. On to transit. Let's see, no real changes here. Transit Part 2, this is transit operation. We've got 1 cart bus replacement on that. Other than that,
I have a question about
Please.
transit. The program total costs are a little over $1 million. How much of that is grant funded or funded outside of the city? You kind of touched on it earlier, and I didn't quite catch the numbers.
So it depends on what it is, but it ranges anywhere from 56 to 80%. I would say it's probably on average, and Rob, correct me if I'm wrong, 60 to 65%, maybe 65% is probably a good average to use.
So, so that's about $400,000 coming out of the general fund, and then writers pay just under about $200,000 a year. That was in 2022. That was the last time I could find numbers on that. So coming out of the general fund, are we paying about $200,000?
We pay about
For transit.
$350,000 to $400,000 a year from the general fund.
Okay. And would that count what the writers are actually paying?
That includes what the writers are paying.
Okay, thank you.
Have we had any, I know we've talked to the county before about getting some kind of, because we run out into the county, and we actually give that help supply a service to county residents. Any thoughts? Have we heard anything back from county?
yes, so thank you, Mayor. So we're actually talking with the county. So one of the capital projects that we have, that we're considering is a CART transit center. So we are talking with the county about a possible land lease from the county at a minimal cost, nominal cost, that would basically account for what we are providing out in the
That would be
county.
their portion of helping
Yep.
support the system. Okay, thank you.
I had a question as well with the college. The
Yes.
college has offered to supplement or at least put that in front of their board. So I'm wondering where that is. And then as far as the industrial park, do we have a route for the industrial park yet?
We do have a route identified. We have not started that. We're actually looking at beginning that route this coming year.
Okay, so could there be some subsidy there?
Yes, and we have been, CART actually has been, and maybe get Rob or Jack to come help provide a few more details on this. They have had CART reach out to some of the businesses out in the industrial park and, to ask for that participation, that additional help in being able to fund that line. I don't believe we got a whole lot of response from them. With regards to MCC, I did meet with President Klippenstein. Unfortunately, he's gone on to other pastures, and so I'll be looking to pick those conversations back up with the next one. But they were definitely open to, acknowledging the 2 stops that they have there, and then also a desire that they have to be able to bring that out to their new advanced manufacturing center. They were interested in participating and help funding that as well.
Well, I just think I would be interested to know at the industrial park what kind of usage.
Yeah.
and as well for the Advanced Manufacturing Center and the college, because that one route, I don't know if it's the yellow route that goes out into the county, that, services a lot of county. We've got to get participation, or, I would hate to say that we do something about rerouting, but we really do. If our major beneficiaries are the county, and/or the industrial park and/or the community college, it just only makes sense.
Yes. And we have had those discussions with the county, and I think both the county and the college do recognize it, and I think that's,
Well, and if the county's participation is the lease, then, I think that would be amenable.
Yep. I don't know if, Jack, if you have anything to add to that, or?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Manager Walsh. So Sherry, our transit operator working with economic development, had taken some surveys, and Terry had talked to people at CAMA, and I don't remember the exact number off the top of my head. Out of all those surveys, none of them had indicated that they would participate in cost sharing to provide a route to the industrial park. All of those potential users or the employees of those businesses, they did say that there is demand there, but that there was no willingness at that moment to participate in the cost.
When did they do that survey? What year?
Recently, within the last couple months.
In the last couple months?
Correct.
Okay. And that was strictly just CAMA members?
I'd have to talk to Terry. I don't know if it was just CAMA members or general users at the airport, industrial park.
Okay.
All right. On to water operations. Let's see. So on water operations, we are looking at the new crew. That's 1 operator and 2 equipment operators. And then there's a decrease, as was talked about earlier, with the standby pay, so that does help offset some of the additional costs. Let's see, we've seen an increase in electricity costs. That is something that, we're definitely taking note of and trying to identify ways to reduce that, whether it be off-peak and that a lot of it, unfortunately, when the demand's there, that's when the electric rates are the highest. So trying to find that right balance on making sure that we're at the most, one, we provide the coverage, but at the least cost to the city. And then, let's see, some additional increases to perform tank inspections, connections and fittings, and then utilizing more temporary labor for weed abatement and meter installs. And then we've got a capital lease of the replacement of 6 vehicles, an addition of 1 vehicle for the new crew. And then capital outlay is a third of the cost of a forklift to be shared with wastewater and solid waste. Purchase some additional pressure reducing valves, fire hydrant replacements, and new locating and line testing equipment, and a dump truck.
So I just wanted to clarify, because it's really not that bad, right? Because when we adopt the new fees, the absorption will be all of the increases, right? So just want to be transparent for the public that it's really not an increase. It's an increase for now, that it looks like in our budget, but once we adopt those fees, that will absorb that. Is that correct?
That is correct. And also with budgeting, again, just a reminder that we don't spend every single penny that we budget for. And so we always take that into account when we're asking the ratepayers for an increase. So that assumes that not all of these monies would be spent either. So thank you.
There we go. On to wastewater. Let's see. We have the addition of an administrative assistant 2 for wastewater. Currently, the one division out there that does not have an administrative assistant to help, and they do a number of tests and reporting to ADEQ. So this will be a huge help to the department and take the burden off of some of the other divisions in Public Works to address these issues. And then also the reduction in standby pay. And then Let's see, capital lease, we have 2 vehicles and 1 new line unit. And then we have the forklift again, a third of the forklift, a wood chipper. This is a carryover from FY '25. A boom truck, also a carryover, and then stair replacement at the Hilltop plant, minor sewer line extensions, and SCADA software and hardware. On to solid waste. We have basically increases in landfill costs, more temporary labor, additional training, more fuel, and new metal containers for the commercial accounts. And then, scrolling down, we've got capital lease for 2 solid waste trucks, replacement of 2 solid waste trucks, and then a utility trailer, and then a third the cost of the forklift again, and sharing that with water and wastewater. Now, I will just point out on this one, I know we have, at our next meeting, we have the discussion for the recycling program. So those numbers are not included in this. Again, we have those funds set aside. Should it get approved, that we can add it into the budget, but where it has not yet been approved, it's not included in these numbers. All righty. Airport. Let's see. We are looking at adding an assessment of hangars A, B, and M, the possibility of needing to perform an environmental assessment for an airport layout plan for the new development on the airfield. So this is relating back to, this isn't the new FAA release, this is the on-premise development by Davcon and Atlas. So basically, if we need to perform that environmental assessment, and the layout plan will cover those costs with a reimbursement coming back from the developer. So that's where, I think you had a question previously.
I did.
I
so-
misunderstood that question to be the release and not this portion. So-
Yeah, no, I just wondered how those reimbursements were going to be coming back to us for the EA, should we have to expend that?
And
Because it does say we will be reimbursed for it, so.
Yeah, so it would be an agreement with the developer before we went through that process so that we would be reimbursed fully for the cost of both of those.
Okay, and that's being put in the
That
agreements?
Would be put, and I'm not sure if it's part of the the agreement right now, guys, or, okay, yes, it is. I wasn't
Okay.
sure if it was before
Okay.
or afterwards.
So is it up front when the project transfers or sells, we go into agreement, or is it per parcel?
Jack, I don't know if you can help with that one. Thank you.
Sure, try not to knock the food cart over. So the reimbursement, back up just a little bit, the reason we have to do that, the airport being the sponsor, we are the responsible party, the custodian, if you will, of that property. And so we're going to be the lead on that environmental assessment. In the agreement, there will be a phasing plan because they won't develop the whole section, say it's 300 acres, that'll be developed over a time period, which is being negotiated in that contract right now that you guys ultimately will see and approve. And so the environmental assessment would likely, depending on the phasing timeline, we would have multiple sections. So once that is started, the developer would reimburse us in whole once that is underway, if that makes sense.
So it's going to be a phased project, but the EA has to be done as one document, not as a phased document?
It depends on the timing. The phasing plan that's ultimately negotiated, the FAA, as we're all aware, that has a 5-year time frame, and so they won't evaluate anything that's out of that 5-year time frame. So if the final phase, say the third and final phase or fourth and final phase, whatever there is in the phasing plan, is out of that 5-year horizon, then there would be another one, but the developer will still be responsible for the expense of that environmental assessment.
Okay, I just want to make sure we're reimbursed.
We are fully.
And whether we're reimbursed up front or phased over time.
We can, right now, it's set to be reimbursed at once. It's not part of the lease agreement.
Okay, that's fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. And then you'll see a reduction in there as well for the consulting services related to the draw site, as that's been closed out. As we move on, there's also a capital lease for the replacement of one vehicle. We've got two more of these, and then if you like, we can take a break before we jump into capital. All right. Fleet services. On fleet services, we are doing the reclassification of one, or proposing the reclassification of one fleet senior technician to a fleet foreman. And then a project I'm really excited about is Risk has been working with working with fleet on putting together GPS for all of our city-owned vehicles. That'll put GPS on 275 vehicles, and really this is a benefit to our employees and to the city in general. You know, a lot of times city employees get accused of a lot of different things. I've seen this, you know, previously working at the county, had some accusations on employees. We were able to pull up the records and either you know, prove the innocence of the employee or show where we needed to improve. So it really helps in protecting our employees. It helps in protecting the city and having those, giving our managers and that the information they need to really manage their people in the fleet. And really it will help sustain the life of our vehicles, you know, monitoring those and seeing where they're at and helping our business efficiencies as well. Let's see, and then there's some additional costs for annual maintenance on our generators throughout the town. Then we have, let's see, some fleet maintenance equipment, tire enclosures, vehicle lifts, fleet bay remodels, and some other things there. Building maintenance.
Ask one
Please,
question, fleet
yes.
services, because obviously we need, all our departments have vehicles and need repairs, but certain departments that are enterprise fund departments, how is that accounted? Do they pay a fee to help cover the cost of fleet services?
That's exactly correct. Yeah, so they.
I mean, there's an accounting, it's not paying, but there's an accounting charge for it.
So yeah, any of your enterprise funds, they do pay towards the maintenance of those vehicles. So to go back into it.
Every division, any division that has a vehicle pays into the fleet services fund. So it's not just our enterprise fund ratepayers, it's the police department, part of their budget pays into it, fire department. So every division, any division that has fleet pays into the fleet services fund, with the exception of parks. Parks maintains their own.
Thank you.
You bet.
And then lastly, we'll get to building maintenance. Let's see, building maintenance. Look pretty good. We have a capital lease for the replacement of 3 vehicles. And then we have a remodel of the city complex break room. This will carry over from 25. That one's getting ready to get started. And then there's constructing a breezeway for accessibility between council chambers and the interior walkway, just providing that additional access to council chambers. And then we always include replacement of 3 HVAC units, and that's for, you know, our various buildings throughout the city. As any of those go down, we have the funds to be able to replace it. So that is building maintenance. And with that.
Okay. How much time do we need for lunch? How much do we all want to take? Come on, speak up. Half an hour, 45 minutes?
That seems fine, sure.
Half an hour, okay. Is half an hour all right, or you want to push it back a little bit? Okay, let's do 30 minutes. Obviously, if we run over a little bit, we're good. Okay, let's take lunch. Counselor Dykens, are you there?
I am here.
Okay, we just wanted to make sure. Thanks, Jim.
Thank you.
Tim, moving on.
All right, thank you. I'll turn it over to Tina.
All right. I'll get us started on capital projects, talk a little bit about the funding sources and overall view of the project, and then Manager Walsh will cover the actual projects themselves. So the 5-year recommended capital improvement plan by category, the 5-year total is just over $300 million. The fiscal year 26 total is at $162 million. Of course, the largest category is in our streets, and that's because we've got a $56 million traffic interchange that's included in that project, as well as a handful of others that you'll see. Second largest is Parks and Recreation, and that is due to a recreation center, and the full build-out of Sunbelt Park is included in that 5-year cost. And then, of course, water and wastewater are typically pretty large categories as well. As far as the funding sources, so the funding sources that are being utilized for this 5-year program, we have our taxes, our local taxes, and then our state and intergovernmental shared revenues, cash reserves, general charges for services, so parks fees, water fees, wastewater fees, small amount of development fees, debt, and then outside participation in grants. And of the $300 million in projects, over $100 million is coming from outside participation in grants. So I want to make sure to point that out. All right. Government, it is mostly government grants, yes.
We'll go ahead and dive in here. We'll try and, if there's any specific project you'd like to talk about or have questions on, please let me know. We'll just kind of go through and hit some of the highlights here. So the first group we have here are general government projects. So
I just want to give some instruction or point out specifically that as we go through the slides, the projects that are highlighted in that peach color are projects that are funded with grant funds, not necessarily completely funded, but do have some sort of grant funding to them. And then the projects that have arrows next to them are projects that we will apply for a grant, but we don't know that we're going to get awarded a grant yet. So they are just included as the city funding them. Okay, sorry, Manager Walsh, thank you.
So on this one, these are the general fund general government projects. You'll see some access control security upgrades. Basically just looking at more locks for, certain areas, secure areas of the city, trying to just improve that safety. Asset management platform. This is a software program that basically tracks our assets and looks at, maintenance schedules and those types of things. Try and see anything that stands out. We've got the shared workspace with Wave CTED at the bottom there, working with them to continue with that. This $300,000 that you see in that is more of the equipping the offices. As as you're all aware, we've had the discussions with them. They'll be fronting the cost of the building and all of those. This is basically to furnish our portion of the space. All right. Any questions on the general government projects? If not, we'll jump over to Parks and Rec. Got a few projects scheduled here throughout the next 5 years. Excuse me. We have, so there's basically a brush truck replacement, additional baseball field down at Southside Park. We've applied for a Diamondbacks grant. We're going to continue to apply for that and hopefully get that to come through. Let's see. Centennial Park, there's some needed improvements over in the parking lots there on the west side. The parking lot lights need upgraded. And then over on the east side, between the park office and Kingman Academy Middle School, that pavement's in need of repair. The number of improvements at the Centennial Pool, deck replacement, replacement heaters, again, trying to get more efficient heaters to address those increase in gas bills. There's a safety issue with the pool slide, basically where the intake line is, basically doing a relocation on that just to make that more safe for all the folks that use the pool. Improving the slide, that slide I can remember when it went in, and it's been there for a little while, so some revitalization for that, and then some tile replacement there as well. Oops, shoot, I went way too fast. There we go. Then looking at the driving range, basically being able to improve the conditions of the driving range over at the golf course. So I guess the next one we'll just include all as the golf course. Putting up some lighting. The Parks Department has been working on making the range ball dispenser there, making that more user-friendly, making it available to the tap credit card payments and Apple Pay, all of that good stuff. So what this will do, the lighting will allow that range to stay open later. As folks want to go out and hit balls later into the evening, we'll have the lighting there to keep that open longer and hopefully increase those revenues. And then just continuing with our netting replacement, replacing those poles and replacing the netting around there. As we mentioned previously, we've got the golf cart fleet replacement. The carts that we had purchased previously, or that we currently have, were purchased right in the fun of COVID, and unfortunately, the quality of those carts did pay that cost. So we have been seeing quite a few issues with that. So what we're looking to do is replace that fleet and increase the number. I think, Mike, what do we currently have 70? So we have 70 carts. We're looking to go to 90, correct? One of the complaints that we've heard at the course is, for our bigger tournaments, and we've had some pretty good sized tournaments, in order to accommodate all of the folks that want to golf, we've had to borrow carts from, various people's private carts in order to make it work. So really, stepping this up to where we can accommodate those larger tournaments. So
Tim, I had a question on the golf cart
Yes.
fleet replacement. So we're going to have to buy out our existing lease, correct?
Yes, I believe we have 1 year left. So
So what's the difference?
So as far as,
Are we going to have to pay out? Are we just going to do a straight exchange across?
so we'll trade these carts in for the new ones coming out.
Okay.
So we'll get basically a credit towards purchasing the new ones.
Okay, perfect. And then I'm sorry, Mayor. My next question, I just wanted staff to make a note. I don't know when the last time that the cost of range balls has been assessed or whatnot, but if we're going to put in this lighting, I would really like to see some maybe increase in cost. We're going to put down the strip for, the driving range. We're going to put in that new sod. So I want to
Yes.
make sure that we are also keeping up with that cost versus
Charge,
expense.
yeah, for the fees. Oh, perfect. Yeah, and definitely, like I mentioned, currently we're looking at just a pretty simple, basically it'll amount to a 10% increase for our residents. But definitely next year, we want to work with our commissioners on looking at those fees and what that should be and get their input. So definitely on our more thorough review on where the fees should be, we'll be sure to include that.
Okay, great, thank you.
Are the lights going to be put on timers?
Yes. Thank you.
And actually, I think Tim and I talked about it on our trip this last couple of days. And I think you're gonna put it where they will not work after 10 o'clock at night, so we're nice to the residents over around the golf course. Or what sort of okay?
And we'll be sure, the lights, Mike's actually done quite a bit of research, and yeah, come on up, Mike, and tell us about what you've found so far on the lights. But he's done quite a bit of research on the light, that it's specific to driving ranges, the design, and it minimizes that overcast into the neighbors. So we'll be very cognizant of neighbors and not lighting them up all night.
Yeah, Tim just said that basically, the lights that we will have will just light the range itself. They won't have overflow onto the neighbors' houses or the Elks parking lot or any of that. It just lights the subject area. So they do a really good job with that.
Okay.
And the time frame, I mean, we can look at how late we want to keep it open is what will the subject will be, and we'll have to just experiment with that and see how much traffic we're getting. Is it worth to stay open later?
Right.
That's what we'll monitor that and,
And sometimes on Fridays and Saturday nights, you can stay open a little bit later.
Right.
Just depending on, of course, being sensitive to the neighbors.
and also the strip about, the turf across the back that we're talking about, putting AstroTurf across the back, that's going to be really good, and we think that will be additional revenue too, like on frosty mornings. A lot of people are out there and want to go hit balls, and we can't have them hitting balls because they kill the grass. So we'll have AstroTurf there now. We'll be able to, well, I think we'll have quite a few people hitting golf balls on frosty mornings too. And we get a lot of frosty mornings here.
Well, and the upkeep on that grass, now you're cutting that cost completely out.
On the lights, will they have solar capabilities?
No,
No? Is there any way to check into that?
we could. I mean, I don't know where we'd put the panels and everything too. I mean, we can check into it though. They're going to be similar to the ones on the ball fields, basically is what they'll be.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
And then golf carts, I know we're spending a lot of time on golf, and anyway, maybe we shouldn't. Warranties, did we have warranties on these last round of carts, and that's part of, and they've been honorable to us on that?
And, yeah, you have a 1-year warranty on them is what you have. And so
Okay.
there's just been challenges. I mean, and I think we're not the only ones. A lot of people in the golf industry and equipment and everything else, we call it COVID carts. They were put together during the time of COVID, and they just weren't as good of products, you know, I mean, and we spent a lot of time doing repairs on them, so, and there's gonna be a lot of other positives too. Something that wasn't mentioned is, we have now, sometimes people hop on our golf carts and take them down the street. So you won't be able to take them down the street either, so that's kind of important too. So it's safety in that way too, so.
I think as Tim mentioned, geofencing, which will stop that from
Right.
happening.
They won't be able to take them into the parking lot and things like that where it's traffic, heavy traffic and stuff like
Right.
that too, so.
Good ideas. Thanks.
Good. All right, and then there's, so talked about those, mower, getting a T-mower as well. Grandview pool upgrade, I know this was one that we had looked at last year. By the time we got through design and the other things, we were already close to the season, so we wanted to make sure we had this summer season open. But as soon as this summer season closes, we'll be finishing up these upgrades. And then, let's see, irrigation equipment upgrade at golf course and the parks. We've got the $330,000 in there for that train car access point at Lewis Kingman Park. We are pursuing a number of grants, and I'll just tell you, I know without acquiring those grants, we'll hold off on moving forward. We want to make sure that we have funding from outside sources before we fund this. So this is on here, but definitely we'll be working to get outside funding to help cover that cost.
Okay, great. That was going to be one of my questions. The other one is, can you tell me what kind of funding we have put into that park? Didn't we get grant funding for all the improvements?
Yeah, we did for those upgrades. So I believe the project was just over $900,000, and we got a 50% match from the Parks and Trails, State of Arizona Parks and Trails.
For all the recent improvements that we did?
Correct.
Okay, all right.
And that, Mike, that included a bathroom, playground, a few other things.
Shade structures?
Shade
Or
structures.
ramadas, yeah.
Yep.
That was the restrooms, the ramadas. The playground wasn't part of that, but we tried to get the train car bridge included in that grant, and we couldn't do that because the dirt lot area isn't designated recreation. It had to be designated recreation for us to include that in the grant, so that's why we weren't able to get that, part of that.
Okay.
Thank you.
And I think we've got some better uses for that property now, it looks like, so it's all good.
Well, and I do support this with grant funding.
Then, let's see, Omaha Shared Drive Omaha Drive Shared Use Path is currently underway. We've been partnering with a local developer to get that done, so this 120 includes some of that. Does that include that funding, or that's our funding? yes, so 120 is our portion of it. They're donating quite a bit more, paving the pathway and putting in a lot of the improvements. And then we have our ongoing playground equipment, 150,000 each year, basically upgrading our playground equipment throughout the city. The recreation center, that study is ongoing. 26 shows 950,000 towards the design, and then 15 million showing out in FY '28. Obviously, that one would be, once we get to that point, basically going through the GO grant and seeing, or, whatever funding opportunities we can find to help fund that.
I wanted to talk about this item, the $950,000. I'm uncomfortable with spending that much money on a project that we don't have the funding for yet. And I wondered if we couldn't include that in the bond, assuming we go out for a bond to do the rec center, if we couldn't do the design and the build together. I would hate to design this project and then we never get it funded and we just wasted almost $1 million on
Yes,
a design.
and I think that's a good point. And I think that's something that we can look at doing, and definitely I don't see any problem in doing that. I think on the sales side of things, of being able to generate the interest, to be able to be successful with the GO, we'll definitely need some sort of conceptual design or,
Yeah.
a picture that we can put out there for people to support. But yeah, I think that's definitely a valid point.
And Director Bratley? Correct me if I'm wrong, but in the feasibility study that we're conducting for that recreation, multi-use event center, was a design concept supposed to be a piece of that, or just construction cost estimates? Do you recall? No, not okay. But just the concept. Okay, just the concept. Okay.
We should be able to, take
Thank
that
you.
and.
I think if we had public meetings and we just used other rec centers in the area, Henderson or Cottonwood, and had pictures of those, and then we left it up to the citizens to tell us what they would like to see in the rec center, what they would use, so they have, some buy-in, and then we get a design. It seems like if we were really good about community meetings and having those conversations, we wouldn't need to invest this much money up front.
That's a great point. And
Manager Walsh, really quickly, if the directors are going to speak, we really do need to have them come up to the mic because otherwise Councilmember Dykens and those watching on our Zoom cannot hear.
Thank you.
Thank you, Annie.
And that's a great point. And part of the current feasibility study that's underway, they have had a number of meetings. I forget how many. Bennett, would you come up to the mic?
Well, and to that point, I would like to know what we've spent on this consultation or whatever this group that's going to,
Grant funded.
I know it was grant funded, but I would like to know how much it is.
So the question is basically our portion of the grant funding for the feasibility study. And then I was curious how many public meetings they held as far as trying to get that information, as far as what the community would like to see as part of it and what they saw would be a good idea.
I believe it's 30,000 was our portion around there, and the entire amount was around 70. And we had 2 days of meetings throughout the whole day. Every hour, different groups came in.
And I think that was a good start, but that
Yes.
was by invitation. And what I'm talking about is doing
Public
similar
hearing.
to what we did for downtown, where we put it out, this is a public meeting, everyone's welcome to come and have a sort of system for getting feedback, and that way everyone feels like they had a part of the conversation, and it creates that excitement.
Well, that's good. Is that, do you know, is that included in the scope to have a more public hearing for the community to come out?
I would have to check on that, and I don't know if it was only invitation only. I think that it might have been put out there to basically a lot of the users for sure that would potentially use it. I can get back on that one in regards to, is there going to be another? We're just the entire community send something out, and I can ask that.
And we can
And it
definitely,
can be
if it's
made part
not,
of it at any rate, yeah. So I know they did say they would, if anybody else needed to talk, they'd reach back out, so.
and if it's not included, we can hold one
Yeah.
ourselves, so that would be good.
That would be easy.
Thank you.
So if I can just confirm that we are wanting to remove the $950,000 from fiscal year '26 and include it in the 15 million, the fiscal year '28, add it to the $15 million cost? Is that
Yeah.
I would like to keep some money in there, because if we have that group and let's say there's an additional cost for us to be able to hold a public meeting, or if they could facilitate us with that, and we've taken that money and we've moved it out, I'd like to maybe keep about 50,000 in there, just as a bumper.
Okay. Just confirming. Okay. All right, so we'll keep 50,000 in fiscal year '26 and then move 900,000 to fiscal year '28. Okay, great, thank you.
Moving on, we have the South Side Field Park Light upgrades, Field 1 and Field 2. Field 2 this year, and then Field 1 out in fiscal year '29. Sunbelt Sports Park, we have 7 million scheduled for this year, well, just under 7 million this year, and then 14 scheduled for '28. That 14 would also be through a GO bond to be able to fund that. We are currently, so we're at about 60% on design. We've gone out and had the Seymour. We've put out the solicitation for the construction manager at risk. We've selected one, and we're currently in negotiations to move that forward as well. So
I had a question on that one. So that's going to be to execute the drainage portion of this project and phase 1, because isn't it a phase project?
So, yeah, so
Okay.
so this would be for phase 1 of the project. We're looking at the drainage portion, doing that as an engineering project, basically using some of our flood control funds to put that channel in. But yeah, so this would be phase 1, basically get it graded, get some of the improvements out there to get a park there, and then really start pushing for the GO bond, looking for the support to be able to fund the rest of it.
Okay.
Looks like Bennett has.
Just got a little bit of information. I just want to revisit that really quick. We had 10 meetings, 46 individuals, 20 concepts are being looked at. We are doing a website, which is going to provide for feedback, and they will personally be making 80 to 100 calls. So in addition to what we're going to bring back, we will have that website up and going where people will be able to comment and make put in information.
That's good. Thank you, Bennett.
Before we leave parks, can I ask, on the golf cart replacement, can we get the cost of the carts without the GPS?
So what we're looking at here, the cost without the without the GPS is the $324,300. The GPS is actually included in the operating budget. That was going back, I think it was.
It's close to $36,000 per year.
Per year, okay. Is that something the commission will talk about to see if they think we need them? Or,
We definitely could
okay.
present it to the commission and get their input on that, yeah.
And then also on Sunbelt Park, the almost 7 million that's slated in '26, is that that cash out of hand, or are we gonna put that in the bond if we?
So the way it's scheduled right now is 7 million, just the way it's set up, and we can move it however council would like. The way it's set up right now is that 7 million would be out of the city's funds, and then the 14 million would then be for the GO bond would cover that. So right now, it's scheduled for basically cash out of hand to do that.
So that park's gonna cost us about 21 million.
Yes.
Okay.
The idea, kind of the idea behind splitting it like that is, one, we couldn't afford the 21 million.
Yeah.
That's part of it. But by getting the start, the idea being with that 7 million, we'll get a start, get that picture out there to the people. They can see, hey, there's this park. To really do it right, we need this additional 14 million. So that's, hopefully, seeing what's there would be the sales pitch to get the remainder is the idea.
I was hoping to bond the whole thing and not spend cash on hand we could use for something else, but.
And I mean, that is an option. I guess that would be an
The road out
option.
to the airport, you know, something that generates money.
And that definitely is, that would be really a council decision on that.
Thank you.
You bet. All right. Yeah. And really, I don't know if that's a discussion we want to have now, or if there's something that we want to have more information to bring back, or if
Maybe
there's.
bring it back, or,
Well, I could support that. I mean, or half of it or something.
yeah,
I
I could see
mean, to
putting some money
recoup.
at getting the drainage and everything going, but that's a lot of money.
It is.
And then, you know, on our wants and needs list, I think we need that road to the airport a lot more. That's gonna generate a lot of money, once we get that road to the airport and that land being developed.
Right. And if we can get it funded,
Yeah,
that'll just be even better.
yeah.
And some ideas, you know, obviously just considering the airport road, some of the discussions while we were out in DC, that road definitely came up a number of times and looking at funding on that. One thing that we will be doing, and obviously there's no guarantee, and you know, probably every other city and county is looking at this grant as well, but the build grant, that was one that we had talked about a number of times yesterday and the day before in DC, is being able to fund it with that build grant. Really to go from Airway all the way out there, you're looking at about 21 million for that parkway. Now, you know, there are developers along there that would be responsible for, you know, developing a road as they develop their property. KDP Ventures being, you know, a big property owner along the one side. When they begin development, they would be required to do a portion of it too. So that could be also a possibility of getting it funded is the developers taking that share of it. But yeah, no, the point's well taken on where the money goes, so.
I really want to finish that road out to the airport, but I was in the meeting when this whole room was filled with people from the soccer organization, and they advocated for it. That's been years, and we should have already had it built by now, but they advocated for it. We approved it. We told them we have the money, we're going to get started, and it was because of the drainage that was the reason why we've been telling them it hasn't been built yet. And then now to say, well, we're not even going to go out to a bond for 2 years before we build it. I mean, all those little soccer kids are going to be graduated and moved on before we get a park built. So I think they're both equally important, but I just want to highlight that was sort of a promise we already made that people were expecting to have already been built. So I'm really torn about pulling the funds for the start of this park. And I think that having some part of a park, I mean, hopefully $7 million would build something significant enough for that area of town to be able to use it and enjoy it, for them to play soccer. Because there's a good chance that a bond's not gonna pass, and then that will be Sunbelt. It will be a $7 million park, not a $21 million park. So that's my feeling on.
Well, and to be clear, my comment about being reimbursed was not to pull it. My comment was to make the bond a little bit bigger, so that we could recoup. So that was my comment, not to push it out and not do it, just to be able to recoup it. What are the logistics of moving that bond up to 27?
You go ahead.
So I believe it's timing wise. In order to do a GO bond, we can do it in fiscal year 27, but we won't have the monies until fiscal year 28. And I don't know that we have the time to do it in fiscal year 26. I think that was the decision of the council to wait until fiscal year 27 to take it to the voters.
Right, but we have it in 28.
Yeah,
Oh,
but
that would be
to
the
use the
receipt of the
monies,
funds?
yeah.
Okay, so in our schedule, we would actually bond in 27, receive the money in 28 and
Correct.
finish it out.
Correct.
I could support that timeline. I mean, that was not my intention, was to pull that funding, not at all.
So are you saying we allocate the 7 million this year, start the park, but then the bond is for a larger amount to get that money, that 7 million back into the general fund and then pay for the road?
That's my hopes, yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
Is that possible?
It is possible as you can do a bond for reimbursement as long as, I believe it's 12 or 24 months. I'll have to get the exact language on that as far as being reimbursed for the project. It can't be years down the road by any means. So I'll get the language on that. So just to make sure I'm clear, so as far as what's being discussed here, we would bond for $21 million in fiscal year 27, or ask the voters anyhow to bond. We'd continue with the project in fiscal year 26, and then after we reimburse ourselves, utilize those monies to potentially fund part of the roadway out to the air park.
Yeah.
Is that what I'm hearing on that?
I think if we build some of it, we're showing good faith.
Yeah.
And, maybe that gives the voters some, feel goods about, hey, we like what's happening. We want to see it, get even bigger and better. And that's phase 2 and 3 to come. So that's kind of my thought process with that. I don't know how the rest of council feels.
Well, what I was wondering is when would we keep on mentioning voters, when would we take that to the voters? What election are we looking at?
Carl, correct me if I'm wrong, GO bonds can go out any year. There's not a particular year, or is it? I believe it's fiscal year 27 is when we would take that to the voters.
Okay,
And I think it's May or March of any given year.
I'll look.
Okay.
and of course, election like that, we're gonna foot the cost of that election. Because something like this, we probably wanna try to keep it away from a general election, correct?
I believe there's only one time you can take the,
Okay, this is
I
a
need Carl to
question.
find the
Okay.
statute for me, so I'm not just.
What was the question? I apologize.
When would we take this to the voters? In other words, how soon could we get it? Because the sooner the better, because we can get
I'll
this
check
funding.
and see if we can do it on even number, or I mean, these odd number years, but I'm not 100% on that because they've moved most things to even number years. So that would be 26, 28, in the fall, but I'm going to double check and see if we can do that. I'm not 100%, so.
Right, and of course, 26 is fast approaching.
Too late.
It's too late to get it for that
I mean,
election.
I would think if you're trying to get your publicity out there, get your campaign going.
If we can't do it in 26, we have to do it in 28, receive the funding in 29?
That's if it's an even numbered year. I think we need to get more information for you
okay.
to
Yeah.
share with that. And I think if we, going back to the conversation about rolling the recreation center in with the park and taking both of those projects to the voters, that was the point of kind of timing
Yeah.
both of those projects and not going to the voters at two different times. So that played a part into that decision as well.
Right.
Well, I mean, I'm okay with the schedule. I'm more worried about the numbers part of it. So I'm more worried about the reimbursement part.
Yeah.
If we can get reimbursement. So whatever schedule you have to work with, if it's this one that we have in front of us, I just would like to see some reimbursement back. We'll put out some, but we need some.
Yes. We'll check on the timelines on that too.
Well, just to clarify, just what Cherish asked earlier, that 6.9 million only takes care of the drainage problems. It really doesn't do anything more, or actually, Mike, I'm glad you came up, so.
It does more. What our original thought was there, and I'm glad I have an opportunity to speak to it a little bit, just because from the RFQ that we did for the construction manager at risk, some really good things were brought up. We had talked about only having turf, and some of the construction manager at risk people that did the presentation, they said it'd be good to have like maybe a splash pad and a playground there as well for people to come. That way we're going to draw people, not only the soccer people, they're going to draw other people there that would be supportive of the park. And they would also then have a barcode scan that they could go on there and see what the park's going to look like and what all's going to be there in the future. And we've also started we've got in the works, archaeological study doing there, so we can then start applying for grants as well for things. So, you know, I think we've got a lot of positive going in the right direction now with, and the drainage channel obviously is the biggest thing to get done. And we have an RFQ with the school that we've already pretty much committed to, that we're gonna take care of that drainage around there too, so. And we would likely get a couple soccer fields out of it, and we would have all the conduit and irrigation run, so we don't have to go back in and tear all that stuff up to do the future phases. So,
Okay, so that 6.9 is getting us actually a couple fields.
couple fields, a splash pad, and a playground.
Good. I mean, I think
No
that's really
nice
what's most
restrooms.
paramount.
Yeah, there wouldn't be
That's-
nice restrooms or any of that there yet, but that would be all future things, then we can start applying for grants for that as well, so.
To Jamie's point, we want to do this, and we need to get it, show something for it.
Something, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay,
okay,
thank you.
thank you.
And then I would just highlight that I wouldn't want to stop looking for other funding for the road, thinking this was, you know, this 7 million would come back to us and that would pay for it. So still do everything you can for the funding of our Flying Fortress Street,
Definitely.
whatever it is.
So I just want to make sure, so it sounds like we're good moving forward with the 6.9 this year, and then we'll seek a GO bond to basically reimburse that 6.9 and cover the remaining 14. Council's good with that, no objections? All right,
And Carl was able to find out that it's the fall of any given year that you can go out for an election for a GO bond. So that's hence the reason fiscal year 27.
How far along will the park be by 2027?
And we'll get a good start on it once we get the drainage. We just don't want to do a bunch of work without the drainage channel, so
Yeah.
we want to get that drainage channel in first. And we'll be bringing the construction manager at risk back to you within the near future, hopefully. So we're working on that right now, so.
Okay.
And they'll be ready to start and be ready to go from, you know, the drainage channel to the first phase, so I think we can get some good progress going on it, I really do.
Yeah, I think if there was something concrete there, you know, by the beginning of 2027, and you'd spend until the fall advocating for the passage of that bond, I think you'd just have a better chance.
Well, and to that point, I'm glad you brought the timeline up, because I wanted to know when you're going to be able to commence this project. When are we doing a groundbreaking on this project?
Well, as soon as we get the construction manager at risk locked in, I think is going to be the key to it, really. And then the drainage channel funding, which I think Tim's got the answer to that, so.
Well, are we looking at later, 25, 26?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Okay,
so
something.
So we're negotiating with
Yep.
with a contractor right now to get the CMAR under contract. And then we're currently at 60% with our plans. So basically we'll have to get to 100% on those, and then they can basically start working on that. So I think it's very feasible that we could be breaking ground by the end of the year.
Okay, that's what I wanted to hear. Thank you.
All right, any other questions on parks?
Manager Walsh, if I could just add, if we do choose to do the election, like Mayor Watkins had alluded to, on a non-consolidated election year, we would have to pay the full cost of that election because it would be considered special.
So Annie's budget next year will increase.
And remind us again what that cost might be, or, you know, ballpark, obviously.
And I can tell you that when we participate in a consolidated election, our costs run anywhere from $50,000 to $75,000. So I would plan to at least double that, because we would be carrying the full weight of all of the, we contract with the county for the recorder's office and the voter registration and all of that. So we would pay for the full, unless there was somebody else in the county that was also doing election at the exact same time.
Okay, thank you.
Just an FYI, I can't guarantee the odd number because the statutes keep going around in circles. So just for consideration as I'm trying to hunt down the exact answer.
Okay, thanks, Carl.
All right. Public safety. Thanks, Mike. Let's see, excuse me, looking at a new fire truck in FY '27. And then, let's see, dispatch, phone service, 74,000 this year. We're in the middle of 3 remodels right now. And those are moving along very quickly. Got to tour Station 1 over here I think it was last week, and it's looking really good. They're moving along great, and Chief's got good news on Station 4. Station 4, correct? No, yes, Station 4, they were able to find a place or they're really close to finding a place on relocating our firefighters during that remodel, so those are moving in the right direction, looking really good. And then 25, we've got the design for 25 scheduled for this year, and then looking at 8.9 million in FY '27 for that construction. Also in FY '27, 2.4 million for a ladder truck over there. And fire station alerting system. And then one here, reserve apparatus quarters. With the equipment that we've got, some of our equipment we're parking out behind. We've got the hazmat hazmat unit. We've got some other equipment that is currently parked behind Station 2. This basically builds a metal building to be able to park those in. That way we protect our investment from the elements. Then replacing all of our breathing apparatuses out in FY '30. So that is fire, and then moving on to police. We had a couple of shade structures that were scheduled for this year. Went back and looked at them. Once we put the bids out, they came in significantly higher than what we had thought. So basically that's bringing these over to account for those cost increases that we saw with those. And then upgrading the training room, making that a emergency operations center. And then looking at in FY '28, adding a generator that would power the whole building. We currently have a generator, correct me if I'm wrong, Jack and Chief, if we have an operator that will handle the EOS, the conference room there, but this would be a generator that would handle the whole building. That's correct? So basically providing, power to that building in any emergency there. Continuing with the restroom upgrades at the police department, and then there's a parking area improvements out for the magnet building. That is public safety, capital projects. Any questions on that? Move on to the airport. Love seeing the colors on this page. Most all of those are grant funded, so number of improvements out at the airport. Just continuing with that. They've been doing a great job on getting those grants lined up for those. Got access control, air-filled lights. We do have an air sweeper and hangars A, B, and M design that will cover the costs through the airport fund. And then some industrial park roads, large engine testing area, the PAPI replacements, airport gun range and fuel bladder disposal, and just all of those there. So that's the airport. On to streets. So start with Airway to Prospector, the Flying Fortress Parkway. Basically making those connections from the interchange all the way to Airway and down to Prospector. This one we will be financing through a bond, correct? Yes. And then, so that's that. We are working on that right now. We're waiting for an updated, we've spoken with our engineer. If you'll recall, he had given us a change order to work on moving some of the culverts around. We've since talked with the developers out there and are looking to keep it where it is, so we're getting an updated change order in order to complete those improvements. And that should time out perfectly with the construction of the Flying Fortress interchange. Asphalt patch truck, asphalt recycler, and then Flying Fortress Parkway airway to Berry, and then Berry to Industrial. These are some of the projects that we were talking about. These we are looking, like I said, next year we'll be applying for a build grant to fund these, and also be working with any development in the area in order to cover those costs, cover their portion of the cost there. And let's see, so yeah, there's your 21 million from Grand Canyon to Airway, from Airway to Berry, and then Berry to Industrial.
I have a question on those roads. The developers along those roads, or the owners of the property, they're gonna benefit from our improvement? There's no payback?
So we are looking into that.
Because they are going to benefit greatly
Absolutely.
from the improvements that we put in. Their land value is going to increase significantly. And is there any way that we can get a payback?
And that's a great question. It's one that we've been exploring with Andrew at, thank you, Gus Rosenfeld. We've been exploring those options with him. He's indicated that there have been that there is a possibility of getting that payback. We're still working out the details on how that works. So yeah, definitely that is a concern that staff has and that we're
Well, we absolutely need to
actively pursuing.
pursue,
Yes.
that. Thank you.
You bet.
I just wanted to bring it up since they're here, and you and I have already talked about this, but Berry Road also exists on the south side of I-40 in a residential neighborhood, and I don't even understand how Berry is also over on the north side, but I think that it'd be really a good idea to change the name of this street so that you don't have people getting lost and going towards the residential side and driving big trucks through over there when they really mean to be over on the north.
We can definitely work on that.
Isn't that an easy fix? Can you do a North Berry and a South Berry?
We can look at it and see.
Rather
yeah,
than
I'd have to
change the
look at
whole
it.
name?
We can look at it and see,
Okay.
yeah. I believe this Berry is right at the boundary of the city boundary, so city limits there. So it may require coordination with the county on how to do that. But yeah, we can look at options on
Something.
how to do that. Yep. Let's see. Flashing yellow arrows, continued HSIP projects on updating our signals. Looking at the Wallapai Mountain Road Bridge deck, we've understand that is in need of repairs. So we're looking at a design this year and then repairs in '27. And then we're continuing to work with the left turn lanes on Wallapai Mountain Road to Central and Seneca. I believe that's, Mike, I don't know if, are we looking good on that as far as timing, as for the left turn lanes on Wallapai Mountain Road? Okay.
We'll probably have to be ready to go.
So we should be about ready, what, for Annie? Mike said that we should be about ready to go in a couple of weeks. Thank you. For the people. Let's see. And then TI West Kingman TI billboard relocation, still working with ADOT on that. Basically put that on the back burner for right now, but we will be looking to relocate that billboard that was taken down. We've had a number of discussions with them trying to find the proper location, so still working out where we should put that billboard. And then Kingman Crossing Boulevard arterial upgrade. Development Services and Engineering has been working with the developer in that area, and they're actually looking to speed up the process in which they'll improve that road. phasing-wise, they're looking at a rephasing to be able to improve that Kingman Crossing Boulevard a lot sooner. So that's in there. The council committed at the time $300,000 towards the upgrade of that road. So that's in there. And then the interchange, obviously, we're still having those discussions with the hospital. And then Kingman Crossing Boulevard, southern to I-40, those improvements along that side. Lighting power upgrades. And I'm trying to think any others. We've had some concerns with the Airport Drive where it ties into Route 66. I believe ADOT's been working with us on that. I believe that they've tried a few different things. We've got a little bit of money in case those those changes to signal timing they've made doesn't address the project. I know that basically they made some changes to the signal timing and we're watching it. But basically this 200,000 will allow for, whether it be a cattle guard or other striping and that in order to realign that roadway, that intersection.
Tim, I know that this isn't a city thing, but the Grace Neal Parkway,
Yes.
that connector, do you know when and if they're starting, what that timeline looks like?
I think, so I know that they have been, they've applied for a number of grants to try to basically fund that. I don't know that it's, last I heard, it wasn't on their 5-year plan for capital road improvements, but they were applying for grants to see if they could get it done.
Will we still have to make the improvements, though, coming out as per ADOT once that's improved?
So once Grace Neal Parkway's in place, that will really between ADOT and the county,
Okay, so that's part of their
really
project.
would
Okay.
address that, yeah.
Okay.
This one would really address the timing of, when shifts are over out there in that long backup for the left turn lane. This would address, more be geared towards that.
Okay, thanks.
You bet. And then we've got monument signs for the I-40 interchanges in 27 on both sides of town. Correct? All right, don't overpromise. And then let's see, mowing tractor replacement, pavement preservation program continues, 7.6, and then as we go, continuing spending that out. Kick broom replacement, Stockton Hill Design Concept Report. This, I believe, was the looking at the widening of Stockton Hill, what it would take as far as to make that happen. Is that correct, Jack? So, obviously with the congestion that we see on Stockton Hill, looking at the possibility of expanding to 3 lanes in both directions and what property that would entail and what kind of improvements would be needed. And then street sweeper replacement, traffic interchange landscaping, looking at continuing to work on that. The Stockton Hill landscaping, I think, turned out great. I've heard lots and lots of compliments on, how much better that looks there now. So looking at 300,000 this year and then in 28 another 300,000 for that.
Which one will you do next?
We will present that to council and ask for their recommendation.
I look forward to that.
And then traffic signals, again, just looking at various intersections throughout the city. You'll see a slightly higher increase. This last year, we did a study for Burbank, found Burbank and Airway needs a traffic signal. Due to the configuration of the intersection, the alignment of Burbank south of Airway and then north of Airway, there will be some reconstruction that's needed. That's why you're seeing that increased number as opposed to the typical 350 that we've seen. It's realignment there, but then there's also looking at the lanes on the south side and continuing the sidewalk down from Airway to where the county put in their sidewalk in front of the animal shelter. So continuing that all the way through. That's the increased cost there. And that rounds out our street projects. Any questions on any of those? Good. Transit. All right. So as you know, we've been working through a transit study, looking at a possible transit hub. This 400,000, as you see, is grant funded. We do have a match, I think 20% match on that. As I mentioned, we are talking with the county on possible locations on some of their land, or wherever it would work best for the city and county. So that's that, and then looking at year FY '29, the construction at around $4 million for that transit center. And again, that would be grant funded, but our portion would be right close at $1 million there. So.
I'm glad to hear you say that where $3 million of that is gonna come from, but still, a $4 million transit hub seems excessive. Could it be designed to where the whole project only costs, $1 million, which still seems like a lot. But what we're talking about is we need bathrooms, you need a place for the buses to stop, right? How is that $4 million?
I'm gonna defer that to Jack.
Yeah, thank you, Manager Walsh, for the opportunity to speak on this. So that's a budgetary number right now. Keep in mind, it will include some other, it will include the amenities you mentioned, the bathrooms and things for both patrons and bus drivers. But the anticipation is that it will also house the administrative function for CART. One thing that actually came as of today, and I don't know if Ms. Moline has even seen this yet, we are reaching out to other entities for a potential partnership, one of those being Wallapai Transit. And so we have a meeting in June, which we've invited Ms. Moline to as well. And so we're trying to bring those costs down and share that with others, including, maybe some regional opportunities. WACOG completed a study for, regional transit plan. They're not necessarily going to implement that, but maybe that gives us some ideas or some potential partnerships where we could help share those costs.
Okay. I just, when I think about how almost half of the riders are citizens that do not live in the city, and this is, we're subsidizing rides, which we've established is a priority. It's just hard to think about spending $4 million on a building that is partially for county residents, but also it does not benefit a large number of citizens. So if we can get those costs down or share them, I'm glad you're looking at other organizations to share that cost, because certainly everyone's benefiting and we're the only ones paying. I could swallow that pill a lot easier if we weren't covering it all.
Absolutely. I would like to update one number that you had, though. You mentioned about half of the ridership and some recent information we've been putting together for proposals to the county and to reach out to other entities. Looking about 30% is on the yellow route specifically, which generally covers the county.
Okay. In the 2022 study, which I think is just, those were just surveys given to the riders, right? That wasn't everybody. It was higher than that. So 30%, but that's still a lot of the
Still
riders.
30% of the cost is associated with outside of the city limits, to your point.
Is this 30% actually looking at everybody that gets on the bus, or it was just by the yellow line is what you're saying?
Correct, by the yellow line.
So it could still be higher. Is there a way to get a more accurate number of how many people ride, not just how many people get on, and then where they live?
So we have, not necessarily at the moment. So Sherry and I have actually been talking about working with Bennett and ED to do some geofencing with some of the programs they have to try and get a better idea of where people are going to and coming from. Right now, we generally have an idea what the onboarding and offboarding is at each stop. Not necessarily they get on at this intersection and get off at Walmart.
Yeah.
But we're actually working to try and get more information. Part of that is, one of our initiatives is to go to some of the other businesses. We tried the industrial park, but, use Walmart as an example. Hey, you're a major benefactor of these routes coming to you for customers, and approach them for potential cost sharing as well.
That would be good. I know one stop that I see that's always got people waiting is like Mojave Mental Health. I think they have a lot of patients that are using that, and they likely could have some funding through a grant or something that could help as well. But thank you for looking for these alternatives.
Welcome, thank you.
On that, Tim, do you know what the value of the land, the leased land is from the county?
We haven't gotten to that point yet, but that will be part of those discussions.
Okay, all right.
But the property that we've been discussing, I mean, obviously, it's very good real estate right in the middle of town and close to the park, so good value to it. All right. Any questions on the transit center? Any other? Good. All right, utilities, solid waste. We've got a forklift replacement, roll-off trash truck, skid loader replacement, solid waste, and then a solid waste truck replacement. Utilities and stormwater, looking at the Anson Smith stormwater storage basins, Bull Mountain interim channel improvements, and then Harrod Avenue basin improvements. And then, sorry if there was any questions on those. All right, moving on to wastewater, looking at a boom truck. A big one here for wastewater is actually constructing a site, basically site renovation, Castle Rock distribution site facility renovation. This is, yeah, it's that one. Basically looking to build a facility for water and sewer over at our Castle Rock improvement that will get them over in that area and also open up some space out at the Public Works building for expansion there too. So looking at a facility over at there. Looking at downtown sewer outfall line interim remediation, just continuing to fix that outfall line going downtown. Effluent filtration enhancement. I believe this is dealing with the recharge, correct? So just to give an update on this as well. So we, council approved the recharge well. It's there. It's approved. It's ready to go. We've had just a couple of delays in turning it on. We want to make sure that the water that we're putting back in the ground is safe and healthy, and by effluent standards, it meets all the requirements. We could put it in there. One of the things we want to ensure is that we know that what goes in the ground, we're going to be pumping back out for obviously, be careful how you put that. Basically, we want to make sure that we're not introducing any contaminants to our groundwater by going through this. So this right here would add additional effluent filtration before it goes back in. So recharge well is ready to go. It's ready to be turned on. We just want to make sure that we're doing it the right way and that we're protecting our aquifer as well.
And how soon will that happen?
So these additional filtration with this budget, we're continuing to explore. One of the things that we want to protect against, and it's something that's fairly recent as far as water quality goes. It's PFAS, PFAS, and I could not tell you right now what that stands for, but I could put Keelan on the spot, right? No, but it's something that's come up recently that they found, in quite a few things. It's basically a particle that just is not breaking down, that's not going away. I think they use it in like waterproofing. They found it a lot, is it 3M out back east? They found it a lot around 3M. And they don't have a lot of, because it's a new finding, there's not a lot of really filtration on getting rid of it. They're still learning about it, still trying to come up with those technologies to clean it out of the systems. We don't have it in any of our drinking water, but as you go through, as it goes through the water cycle and it ends up out at the treatment plant, we do have, some findings of it out there. So before we put that water back into the ground, we want to make sure that we're pulling that out before. So this 200,000 would basically go towards additional filtrations to be able to pull that out before we put it back into the ground. So I want to have it up and running yesterday, but we just want to make sure that we have it done right. So basically, this will allow us to continue down that, and hopefully this fiscal year we'll have it up and running.
Tim, wastewater.
Yes.
Obviously, now with Flying Fortress underway, and of course, the planning for the businesses that will relocate around that, now that's going to add more sewer capacity. I mean, sewer, a need for sewer.
Yes.
How are we looking as far as when we need to start expanding our Hilltop Water Treatment Center?
So that's a great question. We're actually, if you start looking at committed service that we've committed to serving folks, along with the anywhere we have sewer lines and where we've committed to provide sewer service, we're nearing that point where we need to start looking at the design for a new sewer treatment plant. So I believe we have it.
Well, that's why I wanted to bring it
Yes.
up in this.
So we do have the design scheduled, basically starting this year and next, basically working through that. And then as we complete that design, we're working on our timing to make sure that as we go through it, that our residents, our users will not see a massive increase. So as you all know, we expanded the Hilltop Sewer Treatment Facility some time back and incurred some significant debt for that, and that's been a part of what our sewer rates are based on, is that. Timing-wise, it's looking like we should be able to time it to where our additional debt to expand the treatment facility, those payments will begin at the end of our current payments. So basically, we're going to end these ones, and then we'll start construction of the new one, and then those payments for that will be able to continue. So we won't be able to reduce rates, obviously, because those will keep going, but the impact to our users should not be too significant.
And what are we thinking timeline?
So I don't know if I have that. Rob, I don't know, do you have timeline as far as where we're at as design, construction, and when we'd start seeing those?
And are those reflected on this capital improvement projects out to
The construction is
fiscal year
not.
30?
Thank you, Council. So initially, there's a report that's prepared, an analysis to determine the efficiency of the plant in the remaining lifetime of that plant. From then, it would proceed into design. I know going back to the two previous plant upgrades, that was a fairly healthy design process. There's a lot of work that goes into wastewater characterization. The idea with our plant is that we're going to basically just build a mirror copy on the other side. So we just double the treatment chain. And we just need to verify that that's going to be sufficient for future growth. So that was the plan when it was built. Basically, we just flopped the footprint and build another
And it
train.
keeps design costs down to a minimum if we're just going to mirror it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Of course, there are things that would have to be updated just because it's been a while since
Yes.
that was done. One thing that's kind of occurred is that, from the original design of both of those plants, the strength of our wastewater has they say it's more like stew now than it is like soup, right? Just because, we've got more low water use fixtures, the plant's having to work harder than what it was originally intended. So that'll all have to be addressed in the design.
Okay.
But as far as the length, it was a fairly lengthy design process, the original one. This hopefully could be leaner to where it would just be probably a little bit over a year for design.
I just want to make sure that we're anticipating this massive growth that we're all looking forward to, residential and retail. And And are we planning ahead enough to be a bit ahead of it, so we have services in place? So,
Yeah.
okay, thanks.
No, I appreciate that, Mary. And that is, that's really what we're looking at. And I want to correct something on, I looked at the industrial park sewer expansion. That's a different deal. We actually have within the operating budget for a wastewater to basically do a study to look at the capacity and what it would take for that design. So we'll be looking at that, and then basically for the following year, we would begin that design process based on what that study tells us. But to your point, you'll see on here, we have a couple of projects that go towards the expansion. You've got the no, not that one. I'm trying to see. Hilltop, thank you. So a number of the Hilltop outfall parallel interceptor Jaggerson to the wastewater treatment plant. Really, for the amount of flow that we're anticipating and seeing those additional flows come in, we're nearing capacity on I guess, in concept, we're nearing capacity on those. So in order to increase capacity, we need to basically put a parallel line in, and you have to start from the bottom up. You can't have lines up there and then hopefully they get down there. You have to start from the plant. So that basically $10 million there for the Hilltop outfall parallel interceptor is just as you're speaking, planning for that growth, getting that infrastructure in place so that we can collect that.
Thanks.
Good. Thanks. Yeah, you might want to stay there. You might have more questions, right? Let's see. So we've got the Grace Neal sewer main in there. Starting that one has been awarded. We're ready to move on it. We're just finishing up. There was one property that we're working through the final bit to get the property for access across that property. So as soon as that's complete, we'll continue with that project. And then we have the interceptor parallel line, parallel interceptor, and then an improvement out at the Hilltop plant. For our biosolids, so as they go through the process, it produces biosolids. Those have to be dried out, and they have to be dried out in a certain way. They're now requiring that we have an impervious surface to be able to dry those out. So this project here, this $2 million project, will basically do a paved surface that those can dry out on. I can go into more. I can have Keelan go into more detail if you like, or Rob. And then Hilltop plant chlorine injection upgrade. That's just part of the process. Grit removal upgrade. Just improving the plant there. Industrial park sewer expansion. So this is getting the sewer over to the industrial park. Correct, Rob? Yes, thank you. And then sewer capital renewal projects, just continuing to update our existing lines. And then sewer extensions, as we've been doing, just that continual improvement there. And system repairs and replacements. And then finally a wood chipper on that for basically as part of handling those biosolids, we have the wood chips that then are part of that process. Any questions on any of that? All right. So water, we received a WIFA grant for replacing water meters, and that we're continuing with that program. We're also looking at other possible funding sources to increase the speed of that program on replacing these water meters. These automatic meter reading, really a great benefit to the city and to the customer. For the city, we get accurate reads. A lot of our meters are older, and as they age, the accuracy decreases in favor of the customer. It doesn't give us an accurate accounting of the water used. But on the customer side, these automated meter reads they'll be able to detect leaks, within a day or two, rather than waiting that 30 days to find out that you've got a leak somewhere in your house. Distribution lines, just continuing with that. And then drought contingency plan, we received a grant for that and are working on that. Dry well installation, we had a pretty good program there for a while going with dry well installation, and then the contractor that we had that was installing those basically went out of business or just aren't.
Had enough, didn't need to leave Maricopa County anymore, so.
Oh, yeah, they were busy enough down there, they didn't want to travel. So looking to pick that program back up next year and get that going. Purchasing a dump truck. Main tank rehabilitation is in 28. Transmission line this year, basically just continuing to get the water from the wells up to the tanks. It's much more efficient to have that transmission line rather than having all of your service lines and your transmission line in the same. Looking towards the future a bit, the Northridge storage tank, that will provide additional supply and storage for the East Bench. And then just pumping equipment. Santa Rosa transmission line is underway. That's just the cost for that. And then just service lines, water, this source water meters, putting new meters on our wells, and then just well site chlorination and well site evaluations. That is our water projects. And then lastly, we'll go through, and before Rob leaves, while I've got him up here, in case you all haven't heard yet, Rob is graduating to retirement. He's with us. He will not be here at our meeting on the 20th, so I better take advantage of this moment while we got him up here. And I just want to tell him thanks in front of all you for 32?
Yeah, 32 and a half.
32 and a half years with the city. Done a great job, so.
Thank you.
With that, lastly, just a slide here on unfunded projects. So I asked the departments to basically go through and look at, what projects, what are we in need of? What are the things that we really do need? And so they came up with all of these, and ultimately just based on priorities and based on funding, these ones didn't make it to our funded list of projects. But these are projects that are out there, and definitely something that, should the funding show itself, or should, we have one way of going after these, or if council, if you see any of these as a higher priority than what we have listed, it's definitely something that we would, be open to moving things around however you'd like, so.
Tim, to that.
Yes.
I would like to know which projects could have potential for grant funding.
It's a good question, and I think, really, there's a number of grants out there. Obviously, it's always very competitive when you get into it, but I know Monica does a great job on finding those grants and putting in those applications, and our departments as well. They're always on the lookout for those. I think, a number of them, I'd have to look at them, a little bit more in depth, but no, it's a great question. We can definitely do that.
Can you tell us a little bit more about this industrial park expansion power gas?
Yes, and actually I'm going to have Jack come up and talk a little bit about that if he would. Basically, as we were looking at the FAA release and some of the others, this would basically help towards that.
And is this something, not to jump the gun,
Yes.
in case his idea is terrible, but we just cut the 900,000 from the budget for this other project, for the rec center. Is that something that we could use 50 of that for this? If he has a good idea. What's your idea?
So that was based on the plan that we were going to sell the land release area off in individual parcels. Right now, we're pursuing a different avenue, which would be the city purchasing that land wholly. So currently, my recommendation would be to leave that alone, specifically related to the environmental assessment that'll need to be completed. Because if we're not funding it for, some period of time, we won't assess it and the environmental impact for that project. And so with us buying it as a single piece, I think that changes our development direction. And I would not recommend personally at the moment moving with that.
So some of the other considerations, oh, go ahead, please. Oh, yeah, go ahead, thank you.
Question, Powerhouse Outdoor Restrooms, great idea. Don't we have tourist dollars and tourist funding from our food sales tax and also bed tax? Don't we have funds available for that?
We definitely do, Mayor. $258,000 is a lot of money to pull out of the powerhouse or the tourism resources, and that's because right now all of those monies are being used to fund the department. And so the more that we deplete those funds, then the sooner the general fund will have to supplant or supplement some of those. So right now, we're good through fiscal year 30-31 with the way that we are spending the monies in the tourism. If this is the direction council wants us to pursue, we can definitely do that. We'll just know that at some point we'll have to supplement the tourism budget with general fund dollars.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Well, to Councilor Staley's point, since we do have those funds that we've reobligated, we do have monies to pick up some of these projects.
I was just going to say that on the design costs for the recreation center, because that's what we're talking about right now, right? If we are planning on utilizing those monies in the next 2 years as cash reserves, then we don't necessarily have those monies because we're just pushing them out and we're using them in 2 years. If we're wanting to bond for the design costs, then yes, we have an additional $900,000 that can be allocated to other projects this year.
Or if we want to go with a less comprehensive, we have some funds, but not all funds.
Absolutely.
Correct? Yeah.
I have a question for you, Tina. The $5 million or so that we set aside for the EV, where's that going, or where did it go, or is that part of the total of everything now?
Thank you, Councilman Savage. That is part of everything that's included in this 5-year plan.
Okay.
Went back into the pot.
If you like, we can discuss each of them if you like, or just provide the list there for you.
Well, Manager Walsh, do you have preference or priority, or are there some things that you would make recommendations that we should be taking more consideration over than
You know,
others?
I think they're all good projects. There's certain ones that, I think each department would argue for and would say it would prioritize it. And like I said, they are all good projects. Depending on how much, if we're looking at that, I guess they're on this list because at this point, we looked at the budget and said, hey, right now, they're good, important projects, but at this point, these other ones that we have programmed are higher on the list. I think it's a good point with that 900,000 to maybe wait and see where that lands. So I would, right now, my recommendation would to continue with these as unfunded and go with the budget that we've presented. But however, if there are any of these that you think that that I'm missing something that needs to be on there, we'd be happy to move on.
I'm happy to go with the recommendation of just letting it set, or, the departments, they know what their needs are. I mean, obviously, the big ticket items are gonna have to wait, but, you know, if they have something that is priority, if we have a list of 5 or 6 or so that are in a department, but they really would like to have seen this project get in the budget, I wouldn't mind hearing from them. But I also could support leaving that money where it's at too, so.
I was just gonna throw something out. So the departments always prioritize their projects. We tie points to those projects, and we're not prepared, I don't know necessarily to look through those projects right now, but it might be something that we do offline, get together with the departments after we look at the rankings, and then determine the amount of monies that we have, and then bring something to you at the June meeting when we do the tentative budget as far as utilizing those monies or a portion of those monies.
I could support that.
These funds could also just be held in contingency for things that come up during the year as well, right? I think I would rather just do that and go off of your recommendation, and then, you know, things always come up, and it's just good to know there's a little bit sitting there, and, you know, in case we have something that's really important.
I think that's a wise steward. I think as doing that, we're wise stewards with public money, so great idea. But I was gonna say, basically, this is sort of a wish list on unfunded projects. Council, do you have any other wish lists you want to add to it, or we're good right now? Not being too crazy or anything, but, you know, just want to throw that out there. That's why we're here, is to talk about this stuff. So,
Actually, I do have one question. I probably should have brought it up a little while ago. $1.1 million for the renovation of the skate park. Is it that bad a condition right now?
Mike, I'll let Mike address it.
or is that adding to it? Yeah.
We had a company come in and do a evaluation of it, and basically it's beyond its useful life, they say, basically, so it is to get it back in shape. That's how we got to that number.
I do see kids there all the time, but don't they wear helmets?
Some of them do.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Anything else? Either that or it's bathroom break or something if we have to go on more. I know, if we're done, we're done.
We've
Council,
made
any
it
other
through.
comments, questions? For senior staff?
I would
Yes.
just thank you, Tina, and your team for always putting together a comprehensive budget. I enjoy reading through it, and I know that's weird, but I do. So thank you, and thank you to your staff and everybody else. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
And I think we all echo that. Thank you, Councilor Saley. In fact, in our trip, I don't know if you guys saw on the news, watched a little bit of it back when we were back in Washington DC the other night, on Monday night. There was one of the small towns close to Washington DC, they were having protests because they were not gonna be able to fund their police, and they were thinking about doing, now, it was a small town, I think we're talking 6,000 population. But they're getting ready to do away with their police department because they didn't have any money. They were gonna be in the red otherwise. So we're truly blessed that with the funds that we are able to work with, and all of you as a team make it all happen in our city, and we appreciate that. So anyway, thank you. Okay, Councilor Dykens, did you have anything more? Are you still there?
I am still here, but I'm very well impressed on all of the presentations. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jim. With that, we're adjourned. Thank you, and hope you all have a good